OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, 7:30. Thursday morning?
Thursday morning.
Nearly last
day of
there.
June.
There you go. The last day of June. It doesn't feel like it, does it?
No.
Feels like the last day of November.
Yeah.
Putting the Christmas stuff up.
We should be, yeah.
Arnott's probably have a Christmas shop already, do they? Or is it BT who does it obscenely early?
We've ticked off like two great conversation topics here already. Irish weather and geez, it's earlier it's getting.
It is. It's true. It's not though. It's because it's 7:31 now. We've wasted a full minute of your morning talking nonsense. Owen, how are you?
Very well. I'm personally quite excited for what the future of golf holds, because people over the last little while were talking about, Live Golf and how they can add legitimacy to their tour. I think this might be the last we see of Ger in studio, because I presume there is a big fat check coming your way because they need to add a good golfer to the lineup.
I had to turn it down, and unfortunately the representatives were in touch overnight after our stunning performance in the morning Pro-Am, where the team that I was part of won.
It's incredible. We had you on the show yesterday morning from Mount Juliet before the Irish Open Pro-Am, and it turns out that actually top of the pile is you all of a sudden. So it turns out you're actually good at golf.
Well, the format's amazing, right? For people who don't play golf that often, which is me. It's called a Texas Scramble, where everybody drives off and then you pick the best drive, right? Which means all of a sudden, automatically, on every hole, you're hitting from the middle of the fairway. And on par threes, you're like putting. It's automatic. So you can contribute pretty easily in that instance. And I had back-to-back birdies in the back nine.
Oh.
And we finished in the prizes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was like, because we were going along, I was like, what normally wins this? And we about 30 under. And we were like, we're very close to that. So 32 under was the winning score. And yeah.
Sorry, remind us who you were playing with again?
So John Catlin, who won it in Galgorm, and who we're gonna do Virtual Insanity with John Duggan a little bit later on. He's 66-1 at the moment. I'd say he's worth a fiver each way.
Okay.
He is playing good.
Right.
And he had his coach with him, and his coach was this. I've spoiled this now, but there was a guy in a Hawaiian shirt with wispy, billowing smoke coming out of him, following us round with a hat and bifocals, staring at us for about 5 holes. And I was like, I've got to go over and talk to that guy. There's a random following. It's a Pro-Am, and like nobody's following us because Lowry and Harrington have started at exactly the same time on the opposite nine. So everybody, literally the whole place is following them. And I went over and started talking to him. And he's his coach who lives in California, and he was like, this is he's my main protege. I have a couple of other guys on the tour, and he just started talking to me. He said, I've been staring at you, I've been watching you, and then fixed my swing like that.
No way.
Like that, like to the point where I was able to have 2 birdies in the back nine. It's like unbelievable. It was kind of, he's like, and he was laughing his head off, going, "Nah, I'm extreme dyslexic, but I'm a savant when it comes to watching the golf swing." It's one of those kind of weird people who you meet in your life, and we only played with him for 9 holes, and then they switched the pros over. So it's like one of those, like in Fight Club, single serving friendships, where I'm never going to see this guy again.
Yeah.
Unless they win this weekend, and we're going to get him on the show next week, because we're definitely going to get him on the show next week if he wins. And it was just incredible. It was like, some people are just geniuses. And this guy was like, you're doing this and you're doing this, fix that, and away you go.
Is there anything that he told you that you could transfer to somebody else?
I'll tell you exactly what he told. He patted me on the belly and said, you can't go through that, you got to go around it.
It took me a second there.
That was a lesson. He like literally pats me on the belly and goes, can't go through it, gotta go around it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did he feel when he told you that?
Well, I mean, like, I have a belly, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get rid of it. I'm doing my best.
When that birdie drains, you feel pretty good about it.
Second triathlon is on the way,
Yeah.
It's on the, I'm doing my best, but he's like, no, so yeah.
I thought you meant metaphorically. He like tickled you on the belly and said told you nice things.
No, literally patted me on the belly.
So that's one thing. And was that it? Was that like the silver bullet for your golf game yesterday?
Pretty much.
Okay. Wow.
I borrowed clubs. That's the other thing. There's slightly better. I had a putter that was properly weighted. He fixed my putting stroke too, and like just do the same thing as I told you for that. And I was like, okay, I'll do that, and then drained 2 massive putts in the back nine to because there was no chance of me competing or contributing really, except for the Texas Scramble and this savant coming along going. It was like, It was pretty amazing.
So what did you contribute then after that?
Well, those 2 birdies are like 4 points of our 30.
Okay.
I had a couple of others, like I came in a couple of other holes as well. But it's easy because like you've got to pitch and putt.
Yeah,
on some holes. And sorry, the other thing I should mention is that on the back nine we had Darius van Driel, who's a Dutch golfer, and one of the guys who we were playing with was one of the biggest hitters I've ever seen in my life. So he was out driving the pro.
Right.
And so we ended up like either having the pros drive straight down the middle or this massive drive where we were literally pitching and putting, which in the Texas Scramble format is basically a cheat code. So
Yeah.
he was sensational.
Unreal. So what is the big prize then, you know?
Wine glasses.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very good.
pretty happy with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, everybody
It's not-
needs some wine glasses.
The big
you know?
prize is being able to brag to Nathan Murphy.
Well, I mean,
That is the outstanding outcome of this whole thing, because he just wasn't responding to my WhatsApps yesterday for whatever reason. It was almost as if like the phone was off. I can't tell, but certainly as the day progressed, he was obviously already pissed off by the fact that I was there.
yeah, of course.
Because he's the head of golf in Ireland. Basically, he is Mr. Golf, Mr. Ireland Golf. And for what I don't know, Nathan didn't make the cut, but so being able to wind him up, and I know even just having this conversation right now, I can hear him screaming. He's putting down the food that he's feeding his children at breakfast as he prepares to bring them to school, and he started to just scream at the YouTube, and they're like, "What's Daddy doing?" Because he's got the earphones in, didn't want to, doesn't want them to know about this humiliation either. So Nathan, good morning to you. I hope you're well, son.
He's not even going to drop the kids off. He's going straight to the driving range. Next year, baby.
He's hitting the phones to make sure he gets the invite.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what a lesson. You've just given away golf advice to certain people who would have paid like 10 grand for that advice on another day. So I mean, you're welcome.
Well, obviously, it's an incredible privilege to be able to play something like the Pro-Am, because you get something random like that happens, and then there's like a bunch of very interesting people strolling around. Like I bumped into Johnny Murtagh, and I just love Johnny Murtagh. I think he should be the king of Irish sport, because he's got this incredible backstory. He is like one of the greatest people in his sport ever, and then he's turned into like a great trainer as well. You know that thing that I always say about you want to win the genetic lottery twice to be a great footballer and then also be a great football coach. It shouldn't happen, because they're actually completely different skills. Johnny Murtagh seems to have done that, and he's also like very good company, even in like short servings. So that was part of the morning crew. Tomás O'Shea was there, as I said, and but the afternoon crew seems like it was star-studded.
Yeah, Tomás O'Shea's swing looked good.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, it was just on social media. Did they use your tee shot on any occasion yesterday? Your team?
Maybe once.
Right. So there you go. I think.
No, they didn't.
No.
They could have, but they didn't.
Okay.
There was one. Yeah.
They could have, but they didn't.
Yeah.
If I followed that up, that would lead to the most boring golf chat of all
look,
time.
I thought we've kind of we've outstayed our welcome.
We can do it if the people at home want. We can like follow that question up. Okay.
No, we've outstayed our welcome in terms of golf chats.
Yeah, I mean that should be a
The
lesson for
viewership
life.
figures are collapsing here. You know,
Yeah.
that's why we corralled it over to the Golf Wankers pod. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to pay for this privilege usually.
I love Golf Weekly. You should all sign up for it right now. Anyway, what else on?
Jack McGarvey's been in touch to say, hey lads, just wanted to say myself and two of the lads are loving listening to the show every day while working in Vancouver. Would be great to get a shout out, and there you go, Jack. I hope those golf tips have served you well this morning.
That's the end of them. So don't worry, that'll never happen again.
Yeah, no, it won't. We wanted to chat a little bit about some of the managerial merry-go-round decisions over the last couple of days. Like obviously, you were making the strong case for Andy Morin on the show a couple of days ago.
The Leitrim County Board were listening.
I didn't necessarily disagree with it, especially with a vacancy, and sometimes you need to be in the right place at the right time to get these jobs. But Andy Morin is signing on for another little while with the Leitrim footballers. Obviously feels that there's a lot of potential with this group and more to build on. I guess it's hard when you lose in controversial circumstances like they did in the Tailteann Cup this year to walk away from that, because they should have been in the next round. They really possibly should have got a step further than they did this season, and some encouraging moments in the league as well. So I think I don't think the conversation was ever around whether or not Leitrim is an attractive proposition for him, because you listen to how he talks about it and how excited he is when he speaks about his role as manager there. The question was just, does the vacancy at Mayo change things? And I think given how parochial GEA is, win your own home county comes up, it is going to, I'm sure, turn your head a little bit. But as you say, is this a response to the Mayo vacancy, getting this done this week?
Straight away.
Yeah.
Like, fair play to the people who are behind making the decision and making sure that they get it signed up and announced publicly. So Leitrim County Board tweeted last night that they've extended his 2-year term by a year, essentially. Isn't that it?
I think so,
yeah. So what was a 2-year term now becomes a 3-year term, and they've said that Andy has agreed it in principle, pending the full ratification from the county board meeting, which everybody assumes would be a rubber stamp at this stage. So, like, I do think that there's a certain element of Andy Morin being one of those kind of perfect candidates who can get the best out of his former teammates and use them as subs because he has a relationship with them, if that's what has to happen, versus somebody walking in and going, my way or the highway, I'm a new voice, what you've done here, take your medals and throw them into the bin, we're going to do it better. Like, there's a strong possibility that happens. Or somebody who comes in who hasn't got the full intercounty experience and knows exactly what it means to run a high performance setup the way that James Horan has done, which seems to have been one of the issues around Holmes and Kennelly. They come in and change things around, and there seems to have been a separation between what the players believed and what that management team believed. We never quite got to the bottom of that hole.
No, we did not.
Why that went tits up, right?
No, we did not, yeah.
And I'm sure that'll start happening over the winter, right? I think that enough of a remove and enough of those players have stopped, but like they were obviously
that seems like the most if you want to pick the most poisonous moment in Mayo over the last couple of years, that to me seems like the one, certainly just through trying to get people to tell their stories. That is the hardest story to tell, the Holmes and Kennelly.
Yeah, well, maybe they'll come out and do it.
They did or come out and do it. They did one interview in the Irish Independent that year, and then it was.
But now, with the hindsight of benefit of hindsight, I still think there's too many people involved in the county board and too many close relationships between people involved in the county board. So maybe we'll never get to the bottom of that until everybody who is involved is gone. But it would be good for Mayo to understand what happened there and to prevent that from happening again. Because if they get this decision wrong, it's a dark age.
It's an interesting question. Where is the baseline for Mayo? Like, if they regress to their baseline, what does that look like? Is it actually 2010? Yeah, that's the possibility here, that the baseline isn't necessarily, getting to a quarter final every year and then getting to a final every second or third year.
No, it's not.
That's their peak. That has been their peak. So, of course, that can turn into getting over the line and getting an All-Ireland. Of course it can. But there is also the very real risk that it just could become a bit of a regression. Now, Cork do have the hurlers to contend with, and maybe that complicates matters, but Mayo, it seems,
they also have a massive, double the population.
They do. Mayo also have this, that they can still ride this wave for a little bit longer. This crazy decade that they've had can become a positive, where it's an utterly football obsessed county.
I thought Colin Boyle was brilliant on the show yesterday when he was talking about the minor team know nothing except success. They know nothing except being in All-Ireland finals, and so that's a complete change of culture, and you've got to put that down to what Horan brought that first time and injected into it. And that means that the expectation on whoever comes in to manage the team is going to be to reach All-Ireland finals and to win All-Ireland. That's what the expectation is going to be, and so that's why it's definitely the most interesting job at the moment that's out there. However, there's another very interesting job out there. Or is there? Is the Monaghan job still interesting?
Yes, of course it is.
Is it?
Yes.
Or have they been overachieving? Or have they been underachieving? Did Banty do a bad job? I don't know.
I think last year is the real sore point for Monaghan, that defeat to Tyrone in an Ulster final. And it's probably on a par with the defeat to Tyrone again in 2018, and like those two Tyrone defeats almost defined the last few years of Monaghan. Granted, one was Malachy work, one was Banty, so it does feel that very small margins could have gone their way and they could have made an All-Ireland final, and they could have been up against Kerry last year in that semi-final and potentially beaten them, and the whole era of Monaghan would have looked very, very different. So it's hard to be overly critical in terms of what they've done structurally and how they've approached football over the last few years, given they've probably hit their level, but they've also lost when they've had two massive opportunities to do something really historic. So it does feel that they're close to operating at their peak, but I think there's one more squeeze in this group of players, player Conor McManus. Will he step away is the only question that you probably need to answer when it comes to whether or not Monaghan can continue to hit that peak.
We had him on in the off-season when he was just coming back from his injury, and he brought it up unprompted, the whole retirement issue and the question that he keeps getting asked about it. I hadn't even thought to ask him because he's just playing so well. It's like, No. What? No. Just keep going. It's not like he's kind of on the fringes of the team. It's not like he's not still performing at a very high level. Now, he's obviously not at his absolute peak where he was the best footballer in the country for about 4 seasons in a row. Maybe should have got Footballer of the Year, you know.
Don't get to a final, you don't get Footballer of the Year. Them's the rules.
Bernard Brogan did.
Oh, very good point. 2010, yeah.
You know, that's the Dublin media bias for you. So I don't know. Again, a big, interesting job. Who takes that, you know?
Could they do an old switcheroo? Banty back to Meath, Andy McEntee up to Monaghan?
Don't think Banty's getting the Meath job again.
No, that's not going to happen. And I would be surprised if they went for McEntee as well up in Monaghan. It's hard to know. Like who are the possible candidates when we're going through this? Like quite often they would appoint from within. So like I think that there's actually been some talk that when it comes to ex-Monaghan managers, that Malachy O'Rourke could be on the Mayo shortlist, or that's just one of those names.
Colin Boyle just threw out the names there
Yeah.
yesterday. I was like, wow, that'd be an interesting candidate list. Like,
Yeah.
so I did wonder if maybe Rochford could put together a dream team of people a la Kildare, a la the Kerry job that didn't end up going to the Legends. Is there a dream team that Rochford can put together that quells everybody, that somebody's job is to keep that crowd happy and somebody else's job is to keep that crowd happy and somebody else's job is to keep that crowd
For which
happy?
county here?
For Mayo.
For Mayo.
Just to
it's not beyond the bounds possibility that he hops into Monaghan either. Like, especially considering he's already worked with Donegal and has worked outside the county. Like, Monaghan have been one of those that haven't been afraid to appoint from outside the county. Like, Donny Buckley obviously has been in there recently with a role. We're never quite sure what Donny Buckley's role is. So that's maybe that's something that they want to keep and want to pursue a little bit further. But I wouldn't be overly surprised if Monaghan did look for an external manager once again to try and take him to the next level, because I mean, it could be like a one. I hate to be unbelievably cliche here, but you pick up the phone to Jim McGuinness, don't you? I know that he said that he wants to pursue soccer for a little bit longer, and he's not giving up on that just yet. But if you've got a vacant managerial role and you've got a group of players who you feel can get to a last four,
do you know what you do? You just meet him for coffee and you ask him for his advice.
Yeah.
And you're like, look at our playing stock. You know, who could possibly turn this incredible crew of players who are relentlessly dedicated and driven and hungry? Who could turn that group into? Is there anybody you know who might fit the bill for that? Anybody whose interest might be piqued by that? Anything you've seen in football over the last while, in your role as an analyst now, kind of with that little bit of separation? Is there anybody who you think might fit the bill for that? Anybody who might need to, just remind everybody that it was him as opposed to Rory Gallagher who won the All-Ireland for Donegal? Because if Rory wins this, does Rory suddenly get much more credit for his involvement with Donegal as well?
Yeah, 100%. Rory Gallagher is.
Then he becomes the defining character of the last of that strain of Ulster football.
He definitely
outside the dubs.
He's already been getting it. He's already been getting it at this.
A little bit.
Credit.
Little bit. No, there's been people very reluctant to give Rory Gallagher too much credit, and now they have to.
Yeah.
There's been a real slow, and certain, not here, absolutely not here. We've had Rory on all the time over the years as Fermanagh boss and Derry boss, and have constantly been really interested in his honesty about what he's trying to do and how he's getting there, and his willingness to speak to us while he has been an intercounty football manager.
Yeah.
Which is very rare these days. So, but that in itself isn't enough to win you over. It's like what he says wins you over. So we've definitely been happy to give him credit for his involvement the whole way back. But loads of people are like, look at that, it's the same football you always see. It's like, well, yeah, he played really defensive football with Fermanagh because Fermanagh were like whipping boys for generations, and then he turned them into a team that was able to compete in the Ulster Championship, like losing games by a couple of points as opposed to by 15. That's an incredible achievement. It was the point you were making about how do you assess how good a job Andy Morin is doing. Well, it's clear he's doing a good job because there's a little bit of confidence about the team. They're expressing themselves. They're achieving more than they have in the past, and they're building on things consistently. If you were doing the job to try and assess that, you would go and put out some markers and track it over a period of time. And that's what they should be doing now for the next time the vacancy happens in Mayo, just to make sure he's the right guy. But I'm fairly sure he will be. When it comes to the assessment of Gallagher, I think people are starting to think, we missed this one. So there might be some other people out there like that.
Yeah, the thing for me is that when you look at the Gallagher story, you can look at some of the other backroom names that are working around the country. Like even if you look at the current semi-finalists, like I know Dublin are very much an internal camp, as in like most of their backroom team are Dubs. Same with Kerry. Galway is an interesting one where Joyce is like, Paddy Tally. What am I talking about? So he's been kind of brought in, not on the official selectors list, obviously, as a very important coach in the background, and.
A transformative moment in Kerry football, bringing a Northern football coach down,
possibly.
We've already seen as you keep telling us, they have not conceded a goal since he arrived.
Yeah, I mean they've not even conceded a chance, and but like they're stopping points now at this point,
Exactly.
keeping clean sheets.
Will do.
Galway is the interesting one, obviously, because like how much of a role has Cian O'Neill had in their success this year with Padraic Joyce? Again, it's one of these things that's very hard to define because you don't know unless you ask the players, but I would assume that he's had a pretty positive role there to play. And Rory Gallagher managed to make that step from backroom team member to manager pretty seamlessly. I know Cian O'Neill has been manager and has done with Kildare. It didn't go as well as he would have hoped, but I'm sure he wouldn't mind taking a step into the manager's seat at some point again soon.
Yeah. So Rochford's a candidate for both those gigs?
I think so. And I think if Mayo have some clarity on who they want, they'd want to be acting pretty fast. I think that the Rory Gallagher thing, and even to a lesser extent what Galway have done this year, is going to be a little bit of a kick up the hole for a lot of counties. Like, it is achievable. Like, great things are genuinely achievable if you have the right systems in place and a good coaching ticket. You can do pretty extraordinary things. Maybe if you're not from Leinster, then all your dreams just are dead. And it will always be dead. But if you're not from Leinster, there's good news. There is positivity on the horizon. Except if you're from Munster, your dreams are also dead and will never live.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're from one of those two provinces,
you fit the role of the imperialist really well, Owen. It just comes to you naturally. So everything just ends up cresting to this point of, actually I'm Kerry, so I don't really care about you all. And then you just breathe fire on everybody like a dragon. Kerry dragon. Right. 7:52, here's what's coming up. Alan Quinlan standing by. Johnny Murphy's going to give us more rugby at 8:10. Sports pages at 8:30. Virtual Insanity with John Duggan. Padraic Maher is going to join us at 8:50. Vinny Perth is going to give us an Irish transfer special for Deal or No Deal. And at 9:30, more preview of the hurling this weekend. Because the hurling semi-finals they're going to be lit. It's actually turning out to be one of the best sporting weekends of the year until about 10:10 on Saturday morning when Ireland get absolutely annihilated by the All Blacks. Is that what's going to happen? Let's go now to join Alan Quinlan. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, lads. Yeah, I'm only up probably 26 or 7 hours at this stage now, but I'm not too bad. I'm wearing Paul O'Connell's jacket, his shoes, and his jumper as well, because my bags are somewhere over the Pacific, I think, at this stage.
And are you the same size still these days?
Well, I'm fitting clothes. The jacket is kind of nice and neat on me anyway. So, and the shoes are about 2 or 3 sizes too big anyway. But they did the job today. I had to do some interviews and some press stuff today. So, went to the Irish training and had a chat with Johnny Sexton. And I was at the New Zealand presser this morning as well. So, they're full of compliments, Ger, for Ireland, which makes me worried. It's unbelievable. Every one of them were saying Ireland are great and they're the best team in the world. And Aaron Smith, I think, said at one stage it's the ultimate challenge, and it doesn't get any bigger than Ireland coming to New Zealand. So big trouble ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Let's hear what Andy Farrell had to say. You said you were at the New Zealand press conference. I'll ask you about that in a minute. But here's Andy Farrell talking about the team selection. We'll if anybody doesn't know the team, we'll get to it immediately after this. Here's what Andy Farrell had to say this morning.
We've had a great meeting this morning of learnings with the test side and the side from last night, and feeding back to one another, and their understanding of what happened out there, and good learnings from the test team of what to expect and how they're going to implement those changes, etc., through the group. So that's what it's all about, this tour, giving guys experience you don't know until you know. And it's great to have the other boys watching them have got the backs and really keen on making sure that they help them along their journey as well.
And in terms of the All Black team, your impressions of that side and what you're expecting from them?
Pretty good side. I know they've 1 or 2 injuries, and obviously so have we. But at the same time, I think they could pick a 4 teams in New Zealand, and they will be unbelievably hard to compete against. So we're under no illusions what we're up against at the weekend. And like I've said to you before, any type of performance that we've had before where we've managed to get over the line, that won't do this weekend. I'm sure about that.
So the Ireland team has been named, and it's fairly much what we expected. I think with maybe a little bit of I got through it. Andrew Porter, Dan Sheahan, Tadhg Furlong front row. Tadhg Byrne is in the second row, as we expected after Henderson being sent home with the injury, or certainly out of the squad with the injury. Tadhg Byrne and James Ryan in the second row. Peter O'Mahony at 6, Josh van der Fleer at 7, Caelan Doris at 8. It's Gibson Park and Sexton at halfback, and then it's Henshaw and Ringrose in the centre. The wings are James Lowe and Keith Earls, and Hugo Keenan is a fullback. Dave Heffernan, Finlay Beelum. Cian Healy's named on the bench. We'll see if that actually comes through. If he's fit enough to take his place, that'd be great. Kieran Treadwell, incredible kind of comeback for Treadwell over the last 12, 14 months to be named on the bench for the first test in New Zealand. Jack Conan, Conor Murray, Joey Carberry and Bundy Aki, after captaining the side yesterday, is on the bench as well. So what's your take on the team there, Alan?
Yeah, there's no real surprises, is there? I think it's a shame that Henderson is out. I think because I think his physical presence would have helped. I think whether he would have started or whether Andy Farrell would have picked Tadhg Byrne to start it, but I just think Henderson not being there just takes away a little bit of that physicality that we need. Obviously, Peter O'Mahony gets the nod at 6, and Jack Conan is kind of the one to lose out again. You know, we know what Peter O'Mahony brings, his strengths, and I think the decision is obviously made around that line-out presence that he has, and probably that aggression that they're hoping he'll bring. Jack Conan won't want to, be labelled as now a player off the bench and an impactor, but to come off the bench as well. So there's very little between any of the three there in the back row, and but Keith Earls coming in on the wing. I think Mac Hansen would have started there if he wasn't sick with COVID. So there's no real surprises. I think you mentioned Cian Healy there and the injury he got in that Maori game, which looked horrendous. It looked like he was not alone was that his match over, but this tour was possibly over for him. But I believe he came back in one of those moon boots after the game and walked into the hotel fine, took it off, walked around, and was feeling a lot better this morning. I saw him walking down to the gym here earlier in the day, and he seems to have made a miraculous recovery, which shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, because he's fairly resilient and freakish in his physique, and so he's obviously made a recovery, and I think that'll be a boost to him. But other than that, there's no real surprises. I think obviously Carberry, Murray, Bundy Aki off the bench, they'll be needed. The bench will certainly be needed this week, and it's going to be a daunting task for him, because when you look at the New Zealand team, it's kind of formidable, and a lot of those players are in good form this year in Super Rugby. So from an Irish point of view, I think Andy Farrell has said it there himself. They've got to find something really special to try and get a win here, because I really believe that there's going to be a very aggressive, determined reaction from New Zealand, given what happened last November when Ireland beat them and then France beat them. And I think they were under all sorts of criticism and pressure back here in New Zealand. You can feel it, today, talking to other journalists, talking about the coaching setup for the All Blacks and the pressure this series is bringing on them if they don't get positive results. So Ireland are going to really have to deal with that, and that's going to be a real kind of test for them physically and mentally on Saturday.
Has the result from the Maori game just softened all of the Ireland rugby fans' cough a little bit, to the point where we were like, we might win one of these tests now? It's like, hang on a second, they're like their scratch team versus our second team, and they kind of annihilated us. And the skill that they showed is the main takeaway. So everybody has that skill.
To be fair, yeah, no, I agree that it just puts things in perspective that they have a lot of X-factor players, Ger, that can step, that can just accelerate, that can do special things. And if you give them time and space, they show that in the Maori game. If you're not organised defensively and as a collective unit, I think Ireland have got to be, whether it's the team to play the Maoris or the team that's going to play the test match, they've got to collectively be very tight and organised, particularly in defence, because, you know, if you run up on guys and one Irish player on a kick chase, they can just step you no matter who you are. You've got to have kind of guys either side of you and defend really well. And I think there was mistakes in that Maori game that some of those players will have to learn, and they had to learn the hard way, that you've got to stay connected in defence and they'll punish you. And to be fair, there's a lot of those Maori players are pushing for All Black selection. There's some of them, you know, TJ Paranara and Brad Webber, they've got a lot of caps for the All Blacks. There's a number of young players that, you know, could end up playing in this series because they're that close to the All Blacks team, and they've probably 18 weeks of Super Rugby as well. So they got it right. They got their cohesion right last night, and they exposed some frailties in the Irish players, and it was a harsh lesson for them. I think Andy Farrell had said that it was a harsh lesson. So to answer the original question, it does put things in perspective. No matter what team you put out against the Maoris or against New Zealand, if you're not on the money and you're not physically, mentally and collectively right for it, you could be really severely punished. And I think it is a little bit of a wake-up call to Saturday. What can happen if you're not ready for it? And I think it's easy saying be mentally ready, but you've got to be physically ready, because I think if you remember the game after Chicago in 2016 when New Zealand came to Dublin, and you know, it was the Sam Cane shoulder on Robbie Henshaw. It was the Fekatoa swinging arm on Zebo.
2 red cards, by the way. You know, today, 2 red cards, you would hope.
Definite red cards. But you remember the brutal, kind of aggressive, nasty kind of response. I think there could be an element to that on Saturday. So Ireland have got to go toe-to-toe and not let New Zealand intimidate them. Be really, really physical and in their faces. And if there's a fight to happen, you know, stand toe-to-toe and be right in their faces. And but, you know, look, it's a daunting task, isn't it? They haven't lost in Eden Park since 1994. So their record there is unbelievable. So, you know, Ireland are going to have to do something special. But there's a number of Irish players who've experienced beating the All Blacks, and you know, you've got to try and take something from that, not get complacent and think that, oh God, it can happen again. But you know, take the positive memories from that as well. But I think they'll be very alert, and I felt that at Irish training today, that they're very, very much aware of the reaction they're going to get, and it'll be really interesting to see how they cope and what they bring to the game themselves, Ireland.
It's one of the big questions from yesterday, actually, regarding Ireland's depth once again, because you talk about those Maori players who are pushing for All Black selection. Well, all of those Ireland players are pushing for Ireland selection. And if you, granted, get carried away and just look at yesterday in isolation, those players who are pushing for the All Blacks are much better than those players pushing for Ireland. That really Ireland, and over the course of the next 18 months, one of the biggest factors is going to be how lucky Ireland get with injuries, because they can only go so deep into the depth chart. Yeah,
correct. And that is the reality. Jeremy Loughman doesn't start all the time for Munster. He started last night. Dave Heffernan, you know, hasn't been playing with Ireland regularly. Tom O'Toole, you know, Gavin Coombs, Nick Timoney, these guys, Treadwell, they need more game time. They need to be out on the field at international level and see the difference, experience it, learn from it. You've less time and space in international rugby than you do with your provinces. The pace, the speed of the game, you get punished for mistakes more. You know, Kieran Frawley at 10, he needs, if he's going to be considered an option at 10 going forward, he needs more time there. So James Hume, he's had a great season for Ulster, but it was a difficult night as well for him last night. He had moments in the game and picked up a nasty injury himself. So I think a lot of those players, they've probably 14 months now before a World Cup, and Andy Farrell, that's a challenge. He's got to try and find a blend now of getting more depth in some of those positions. But it's the same as all the other international coaches. I think particularly, Scotland, Wales, England, they're all trying to get depth in their squads. Some are, in better positions. Look at South Africa, the depth they have, and they seem to be in a really good place. So that's the key for Andy Farrell, is to try and improve that depth and expose those players. And some guys will fall away, and some younger players may come through. I think someone like Ryan Baird as well.
Well, it's unfortunate that Ryan Baird hasn't actually grabbed a place in this team just yet, because it looks like hopefully he's going to reach.
Yeah, he's a quality player, and Joe McCarthy is as well, and I think they will go on to have long international careers. And but as many as though you want as many players on the fringes to try and start putting pressure on the starters. And how long have we spoke, Ger, about the 10 slot? 9 and 10. Well, Gibson Park has come in the last kind of 2 years and been brilliant there, but we still have a problem at 10 if Sexton gets injured.
Well, I was just getting to that, right? So the lads were talking yesterday with Keith Wood after the show yesterday, and after the game rather, and they just listed off the injuries that have happened on this tour in a week. And if you think about that and the possibility of the same number of injuries happening in a World Cup cycle, which is very likely, we are playing 2 very serious tests in the pool stages of the World Cup. Like, you need 45 players really who are at international quality. You can't bank on the 30 odd who are named in the squad, whatever the number is, to be the players who bring you through, barring some kind of weird freak, which never happens. Certainly has never been something that has happened to us. So the team who plays in the third test may well end up being the same team that starts a World Cup quarter-final if we make it there, and it could be completely injury depleted. So we just need to get used to that, really, and as you say, build that depth through this. With that in mind, right, and having seen the decimation already after 1 game and 2 training sessions, or however number of training sessions it is, what does success look like now from this series?
So just on the injuries, you go back to 2015, you think of Argentina in that quarter-final, Paul O'Connell, Sean O'Brien, Tommy Bowe,
O'Brien was
Johnny
suspended.
Sexton.
O'Brien was suspended.
Yeah, well, he was gone. He was gone. Okay.
But that was his own doing, he had control over that.
Yeah, I know, but we're talking about getting depth. We've 5 of our starters gone out of the team, and it told in that Argentina game. So, there's no quick fix solution here. Andy Farrell has to look at development of these players, getting more game time with their provinces, getting more senior roles with the provinces, and looking at the November internationals, I think, at home, trying to play them and expose them more as well. But there is every chance that there's going to be changes. You hope, you would hope that, look, I think what constitutes success here really for me is not getting a 60-point drubbing that happened in 2012. I'm not suggesting it will happen, but things can fall asunder pretty quickly down here if you're not on the money, and if you are struggling, a couple of key players are missing. And I think that would be the worst thing that happened, that we would get a comprehensive beating. It could happen still, but I think even if you don't, obviously winning a test would constitute brilliant return. But if you're not going to win any of the test games, that you're thereabouts, you're knocking on the door, you're asking questions, and you're not being completely dominated, because for any side to come here, it's always a challenge. So I think to avoid that situation of getting a comprehensive beating and being really competitive, and I think if Ireland are in the mix in any of the 3 tests, I think they're capable of winning it, and they're good enough. And I think they've got to find that little bit of ignition again that they showed us this year. They were brilliant in November, not just in the New Zealand game, but Japan and Argentina. Their execution was superb. We saw some really good moments in the Six Nations as well. So I think they can draw on that confidence, and hopefully they can, and they can find a performance here for Saturday.
Okay.
Because I think they need to start well for themselves mentally.
Give us your prediction.
Oh, my prediction. I think New Zealand will win the game. So I think it's going to be very difficult for Ireland, but there's a little part of me thinks that Ireland will get a performance here on Saturday and really step up. But when you look at the New Zealand team and you look at the experience and even some of the new players that are coming in, some of them are very, very hard to stop. So I think New Zealand should win this game.
Yeah.
When are we expecting you to find a bag, Winnie, or is that just is this just like absolutely
forever? Through
up
week
in the
3.
air?
Yeah.
God only knows. There's some of the other some of the other journalists I was chatting to, their bags are 3-4 days. They're scrambling looking for clothes, so I'm going to have to raid Paul's wardrobe again in the morning, maybe, because he has free laundry here anyway, so he can keep getting the stuff cleaned. I can just keep sneaking into his room, robbing his clothes. No, hopefully I'll have a bag in the morning. I need it badly, or else I'll have to go out and replace stuff and buy a big coat for the match on Saturday and stuff like that. There's a few things I could really do with, and there's obviously things you can go out and pick up, socks and underwear and stuff like that. That's easy enough, but anyway, hopefully it comes tomorrow.
Is the weather awful?
No, it's not bad at all. No, it was good. It was good today. It was nice and pleasant and sunny. Probably not the warmest, but very pleasant anyway. So
right.
I think there's going to be a few showers at the weekend. So we'll see, but all good so far.
All right, Quinny, we'll catch up with you on Monday. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, lads.
It's Alan Quinlan live from New Zealand in Paul O'Connell's Close. It's 11 minutes past 8. We're both in the midst of oh my God, we're going to get spanked.
Yeah. Like the Maori game shouldn't matter in that, but it feels like it does. I completely buy the argument that, it's going to be a totally different team. But yeah, yesterday was just kind of like a bit of a wake-up call as to how tough to tour. It's just been a long time since Ireland have toured New Zealand.
Chiefs Girl says the Maori loss won't matter much come Saturday. Ireland need the extra midweek games to build depth. If they get injuries to key players in the Rugby World Cup, they'll be in trouble if others have no game time. It's 100% true, and there's so few games, and we know that. But
well, that question you put to Quinny there about Ireland needing 40-45 players, like Andy Farrell literally said that at the outset of the tour. We need 40 players who are ready to play knockout World Cup rugby. That is why they are deliberately going through these experiences.
Yeah.
So I don't think...
And it has been as harsh as, like, you wargame it out, and you're like, if this really bad scenario happens, and then immediately it's like, 5 of our players are gone. Without us even like really, we haven't played a second of a test match and 5 of our players are like really unavailable for selection. Right, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back after the break with Jenny Murphy from more chat ahead of Ireland's first test this Saturday. First, here's Liam Toland on last night's Wednesday Night Rugby saying that he feels Kieran Frawley has now firmly grabbed the backup number 10 jersey for Ireland. Take a look.
Kieran Frawley at 10, Liam.
I thought he was very good. He definitely is very comfortable on the gain line. Certainly in the opening 10 minutes or so, when he had a reasonable platform to play with, he was very keen to get on the gain line. He had a variety in his game. He was comfortable in the physical environment. And I thought he looked good. As the platform in front of him kind of dissolved a little bit, I don't think Ireland were playing much rugby for lots of that game. So, but when Ireland had some sort of a parity of possession, I thought he did really, really well. I think he's a really good player. We got to be conscious that he's not played a whole lot as a 10. He's had very little experience at the highest levels as a 10. So I thought he did really, really well. And you and I have discussed the challenges of the second choice out half over the running weeks and where Carberry fits in. Like, Carberry for me is a phenomenal player, but he's not demanding, he's not dictating, he's just not playing as well as you'd hope he would play. You know he can play. So I think there's an opportunity for Kieran Frawley, even ahead of the other 2 so-called second string out halves. I think it's a good opportunity for him.
Fiona?
And getting back to the idea of what Farrell was asking, testing players for future tests or testing players at this elite level, I think someone like Kieran Frawley fits into the first one. He's being prepared potentially to be a test player.
Yeah, but I suppose, Liam, with that, if that is the case going into a World Cup, you'd wonder how much rugby he will get then back at Leinster at 10. Do you know what I mean? I suppose with the quality they have in there. But he definitely, I thought Joey stepped up to the play today at times. I thought he started well. He played deep. He played on the gain line, exactly like Liam said. But a couple of times as the game went on, I was a bit disappointed when Ireland were attacking inside in 22. And I suppose he's every opportunity and every right to try. He done a couple of kick throughs or crossfield kicks when I thought Ireland might have been better off to hold on to that ball because they hadn't really got through enough phases. I understand if they had penalty advantage or there was different things, there, but I just thought he might have given that ball away too soon at times. But I'm happy these are the games you try it in, and I thought he looks confident at times, and I thought he worked really well with Casey as well.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
I was looking at Love Island there last night. There was a huge shock. There's someone leaving the villa tomorrow night. But the thing is, you don't want to be leaving the villa here in Thurles today. Whoever stays in the championship today has a real chance.
Well, Tommy, I don't know if we should be joining the villa or should be doing maybe the commentary for Love Island, but that's probably the best reference I've heard now on the radio in a long time.
I don't have the six-pack to join it, so I'll work on it this winter maybe.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, we're sticking with rugby. Jenny Murphy, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, I'm not too bad, thanks.
What's your level of confidence about what kind of performance we're going to get from Ireland on Saturday morning?
Listen, it's a brand new team facing an even stronger opposition. It's going to be tough. Playing in New Zealand is always difficult. But I would imagine the lads that were watching the game, the Merry All Blacks game, will still get a lot from it. We all know that the All Blacks are going to play at pace. It's going to be speedy ruck ball, and you have to be so sharp when you're kicking it to them because when we saw they can transition to attack so smoothly. I think it's going to be tough, but then you've got all that experience in there, really solid front row. As long as that negative energy from that loss hasn't kind of seeped in, I think we could do a good job. Just stick to the task at hand and see where we go.
Yeah, it's kind of, it feels, I don't know, it's a really weird scenario where this is a team who we beat the last time we played them, and yet we're not feeling particularly confident about beating them this time because so much has changed in that relatively short period of time. And they're coming off the back of their club season, looking forward to bursting into their international season with all of the energy that they always have at this stage of the year. And we all just feel a little bit wrecked, it seems. And, it's kind of the walking wounded at the moment. So, I don't know, maybe we're overreacting to that, and maybe we should expect Ireland to at least put in a performance this weekend?
I think they are going to put in a performance, and it's really easy to lean on. It's an 11-month season. It is long, and there's probably some wrecked bodies out there. And the fact that we're picking up some injuries, even at the tail end of what is an exceptionally long season, is tough. But in saying that, there's a trade-off of these players now have played a lot together, they've gelled together, and the All Blacks are fresh in after a club season, so it takes a little bit of time, you would think, for something to kind of click. There's pros and cons. The guys are going to be wrecked, but they know that at the end of the next 4 games, they can head to Bali, soak up some sun, pina colada, but finish on a high. And playing New Zealand in New Zealand is a challenge that everyone wants to, they do want to step up for, and it's where you want to perform, and it's where they want to get the win.
Yeah, I think Nile Carney was already doing that.
It was unbelievable, just coming off the plane and then absolutely tearing into it. Brilliant, and I thought he really put his hand up. Just serious effort from the Munster run.
In terms of the team selection itself, was there anything that was surprising? Peter Manny gets the start, Keith Earl gets the start. You can quibble about this. I see Tony Ward in the paper saying that Jordan Larmour should have been picked for his game-breaking ability, but they haven't gone back to Larmour in a long time. The fact that he's in the squad maybe is an opportunity. He might get an opportunity. No doubt there'll be injuries in that back three as the Test series wears on. But they love Keith Earls. They've given him a contract to the end of the World Cup, which is a real sign that we're backing you to get to the World Cup and be part of our squad.
Yeah, and I can see why people have made the argument for Larmour, but you're going to have less space to do all that that like fancy stepping against the All Blacks. Weather in Hamilton the other day was manky, and Earls he's so consistent all the time. Yeah, you mightn't get as many flashes of brilliance, but that's not what you want at times for your winger. It's great, but you want consistent. You need to be solid, especially against this team. So no, I can see why they back Earls, and he's basically had a second lease of life when he's playing ball now, and I think he's like a stalwart of this team in particular. He adds a great bit of energy. So no, I can see why Farrell picked him. I can see why there's moans going up. But if I'm in that coaching staff, I'd be giving a nod to Earls myself. He's played against these before. He's got plenty of experience, and like you're saying, Larmour hasn't been in the green jersey for a while, so he's going to get an opportunity on this tour, but maybe not as early as he would like.
Where does the balance lie between getting a humbling experience in a positive sense and a crushing experience like yesterday might have been, or that might be coming down the line over the next few weeks? Like, say, for example, if you're Jimmy O'Brien, who's been brilliant all season for Leinster and struggles a little bit yesterday, how do you ensure, if you're Andy Farrell, that becomes a positive experience? Because he may not get the minutes against New Zealand, against the All Blacks, to actually prove himself after a disappointing morning yesterday.
I think a lot of that is when you get a little bit more experience, it's easier to find the positives and also be a little bit clinical with I did this poorly, I need to work on this. And then you kind of put it in a box and go ahead and try and make the best of it, learn from it. And when you're younger, a lot of the time emotionally that can kind of seep in. So for Farrell and for his teammates, it's about really nipping that in the bud and making sure that you still have a confident Jimmy O'Brien, he's off the back of a really strong season with Leinster. You don't want that one experience, I guess, such a strong team to kind of stick there permanently. So it's about addressing what did go well, what didn't go well, absolutely kind of doing heavy reps on things that you want to work on in camp, and then just parking it and kind of moving on. And a lot of it is your teammates just kind of telling you to get over it yourself and not being too sympathetic. I find that work with me anyway. You get a little bit of, oh, woe is you, and then you move on, or you're bringing everyone down as well.
We're in a really weird situation here where we're all thinking about what's going to happen at the World Cup. The management are trying to make sure that they've got depth built for the World Cup. They've got confidence going into the World Cup that the team is performing well and that they know what's going on, while at the same time trying to bring players through who don't have experience of winning big games. And it's such a fine balancing act over the next while. Some of these games you can take a risk in, but not many. You can't really take a risk in the 3 tests against the All Blacks. There's a couple of tests in November where you can take some risks, but again, if you get blown out in a big game by a future opponent who you might meet at the World Cup, what's the long-term psychological damage of that? And then you've got the Six Nations, and then you've got the World Cup, and that's it. It's the World Cup is coming down the tracks. In game times, it's less than 8 or 9 really serious, meaningful games before the kickoff of the World Cup. So, it's so difficult to know what we should be trying to do or what we should be hoping for from this 3-test series. If you just take the 3-test series, Jenny.
Yeah, I think you have to look at being okay, we're going to be playing against the best team in the world. You want to be sharpening the arsenal that already works. Your spine of your team, the Sextons, Furlongs, pace of the game, get them sharp, get them confident. And then also it's about still bleeding in. And like you're saying, it is a balance, but still needs to be done. We know from previous World Cups that something can hit the fan and someone that we heavily relied on or we feel like is pinnacle to Ireland's success gets an injury and we have to rely on something else. So you kind of want to spread that confidence throughout the team being like, I'm able to play at that pace, I'm able to play at this level. And like, that's what I think they're trying to do from the looks of that Irish squad right now. You've got like a really experienced centre partnership. You've got strong subs to come on as well. So like, I don't know what the number is. Do you have like, 13 of your like locked in starters, and then you start kind of moving stuff around? There's a lot of like that battle again for centres. Like, do we go with, Aki's on the bench coming up in this game? Ringrose, Henshaw, I think they've performed really well together at Leinster. Do you mix that up a little bit as well? I think at this stage, it's like you can still make some big twists and some slightly off calls. And as we get closer, and even in the Six Nations, that's where we're going to see something cemented in. So like, I don't think we need to be particularly worried. Like, yes, we want a performance. We don't want to get blown out. Like, that's like, they're really obvious things, but Farrell also can't stick with like, a Victorian sponge. We know it works, it's great, it's delicious, but there needs to be some little pockets of something different too that we can kind of rely on when we go into this World Cup and we face off really strong opponents and potentially the All Blacks.
We need a layer cake, right? We are all agreed. We need a layer cake here.
The minute I said it, I was like, why did I pick a Victorian sponge? There's better cakes, like a Black Forest Gatto, something like that. But yeah.
Black Forest Gatto sometimes can be ruined. They add booze to it and it just doesn't work sometimes.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo the cherries.
No,
and the cherries are the little experiments here. So yeah, we'll stick with the cake analogy, and I'll get slagged horrendously for this.
There are no cherries in this team. This is like his first choice. This is I'm going to war. If the World Cup final was tomorrow and these players were available and they were the only players available, that's who he's picking. There's zero experimentation with this group for this team for this game on Saturday. So like they're putting all of their chips in the middle, and it's like, right lads, it's up to you now.
Well, this is the team where you're like, you look at it and you kind of nod your head and you're like, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. And it's up to those guys to hold on to the jersey, because the teams that are sitting on the lads that are sitting on the bench, the guys that are on high bench are looking at that being like, how do I knock X player off? How do I get to that stage? So it's like the benchmark is here, and how do I get that jersey? And if players go really well and those 15 perform, then yeah, they're going to be difficult to budge. But it's a long way away from the World Cup. It's still a really long tour. So much things could change. So it's like it's early days.
One of the slightly concerning things just from listening to Keith Wood yesterday was just talking about the skills difference that he saw between the Ireland players and the Maori All Blacks. That feels like...
They're handling in the rain. Their left-handed pass at full tilt. It's like, uh-oh.
Like as you said yourself, Jenny, like it was a dog of a day down there, which should suit Ireland to a certain degree.
It's here, doesn't it? It does sometimes.
It does, and like I guess it is often like just a great leveler in terms of what you're going to identify in terms of skills. I appreciate, like you're right, there is a lot of rugby to be played here, and we're totally overreacting to yesterday. But if we can just lean into the overreaction for a moment, just on a skills level, was that a red flag for you at all yesterday?
It was a little bit concerning because it didn't look like it was raining on on Maori ball. Like we're talking about like passing at pace, fingertip passing, and also like being really smart, like and not just the backs here. Like the tight five looked so comfortable with ball in hand, and the step up from the Maori team that played the weekend to the likes of Cody Taylor, Brodie Retallick, they're even a different level again when it comes to handling. They look so comfortable, and it's not even like in manky weather, ball is coming at you, and a lot of the time it's security first and then get the ball away. And that wasn't a concern at all. It was like fingertip, catch and pass. Everyone knew where everyone was, really strong support lines, and really quick ruck ball. Now I think like a lot of that is like, yes, their handling was brilliant. I thought they managed the game really well. Any opportunity that Ireland gave them with like quite poor kicking at times that was a bit aimless, they really punished us. Like I think 3 tries in the first half came from like little wayward kicks that didn't seem that organised. I don't think the All Blacks won't get that space today or at the weekend tomorrow. Sorry, time difference and everything. But yeah, it is something that's supremely impressive. I do think that Ireland's, particularly front three, are ballers, and they do have the ability to pass the ball. But like across the board, I think All Blacks and the Maori All Blacks are, they're freakishly skillful, and it's scary, and it's something you need to nullify. But like, cut down on those quick ruck balls, so we're defensively set as early as possible, so we're able to put that under pressure, because we were kind of going backwards at times, and the ball was away before we even had time to kind of get set. So that's one area I'd imagine Farrell would be really trying to like focus on before the game.
If you think about how test series have gone for teams going to New Zealand in the past, and you just look at the Lions, absolutely obliterated in 2005, and then just about break even the last time they were down there. That was the Lions with the pick of the countries. So what do you think is going to happen over the 3 tests? And give us your prediction for this weekend, Jenny.
I think it's going to be an All Blacks win, but a close one next game. Then it's so hard to kind of say when you don't know the teams and stuff. I'll go All Blacks to win this tour 2-1.
I think we'd take a 2-1, right? At this stage, it'd be like, all right, something happened in that last test.
Yeah, at this stage, but like, we look at the game and you're like, actually, do you know what? Ireland could get 2 scalps here and come away with a really solid tour. So yeah, I'm really hesitant to put forward a sweeping statement, but I think you'd be pretty happy with that.
Absolutely. I think a lot of Irish rugby fans are in the defence position where it's like, we're probably going to lose these 3 and that'll be okay, because, our lot in life is to be disappointed around the time of the World Cup, and it's better to get our disappointment started now. So anything that happens good at the World Cup is actually like the time that Gordon Hamilton nearly beat Australia. It's like...
we don't want... I think it's right, like, our hopes, we don't want them to hit roller coaster pinnacle level only to be quarterfinal curse.
Yeah.
So like maybe a touch or two, a disappointment in New Zealand, and then all guns blazing for the World Cup. And you know what? I'd take that.
Yeah, wasn't it nice of Leinster to get that ball rolling by losing the Heineken Cup final and bringing us all back to earth, going, oh, hang on a second, they are human. So
super sound.
Yeah,
super
exactly.
sound.
Exactly. Yeah, they took one for the team there. Jenny, good stuff. Thanks a million.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
So Jenny Murphy giving us her thoughts on cakes and the team this weekend.
Yeah, what will it end up being? A caterpillar cake or a...
Colin the Caterpillar.
Yeah, best cake around.
Good cake, very good cake.
Best cake around, to be quite honest. So that's what we got to hope for. Insert scrum analogy there.
I'm worried. The Maori game, I didn't see it. I listened to you guys afterwards, and I am worried.
The one thing I would say is that Andy Farrell and his coaching ticket got a lot of credit in the Six Nations for how Ireland set up. Granted, it's a more fluid style of rugby than under Joe Schmidt. It's not as prescriptive, but it's still a plan. It's still an approach to the game that those players would have been. It would have been drilled into these players in training and throughout the experience of Six Nations. Can that game plan be imposed on a brand new team? Like when you've got 5 debutants in the starting team yesterday, or certainly the first one of the first experiences starting in the green shirt, or certainly when you throw in substitutions, then how can you expect that amount of change to a team and expect the same game plan to be as sharp?
No, it's very difficult. It's just that the Leinster performance in the Champions Cup final included some errors that we haven't seen that often from this Ireland team, and if those errors happen in a green jersey the way they happened in that blue jersey, then we'll get hammered, because every time one of those errors happens, it's not La Rochelle, it's the All Blacks who are again a step forward from that, and they'll be running in tries. So more tries. I mean, La Rochelle did run in a load of tries. So that's, you put together the Maori performance, which obviously is a completely different team, with the end of the season for Leinster and in the URC, it's like, oof. These guys need to play better than they played since the Six Nations.
Yeah.
There's been
Yeah, no, that's okay. True. Yeah.
One last question, one last comment here. After yesterday's performance, I think there was an overreaction to the loss to the New Zealand Maori. We deserved to lose, but left a number of tries out there, while there were several tries conceded that were soft, says James McCullough, giving us all a glass half full. It's time for the papers.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
Ah, no, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not having that, no.
All right, at 8:34 we can run you through the papers. Where are we going to start? Going to start with otbsports.com? No, we're not. We're going to start with the papers. The front of the Irish Independent has Robbie Keane, John O'Shea, and
you.
And James Nesbitt during the Irish Open Pro. And on the back, this might be the photograph of the day. It's two ballers. It's Joe Canning and Angela Downey. Angela has 10 times more All-Ireland medals than Joe Canning. 13 times more, maybe. So she's the all-time great camogie player. He's the all-time great hurler. And I don't know, were they both playing? They both appear to have clubs there. So, two greats meeting. It's a good old day. We should protect the Irish Open. We should help the Irish Open. We should be part of the fact that the thing exists.
Yeah.
Like, it's this massive jamboree where all of European golf comes. And I know European golf can sometimes always suffers by comparison with the Americans, but like the co-sanctioned events, the increase in prize money, like becoming part of the PGA Tour, that's either part of the future or they get in bed with the Saudis and we're all disgusted by it. So like a various range of outcomes are on the table for the DP World Tour at the moment.
And some of those DP European Tour events look terrible on television. But when you go to, and I'm not including the Irish Open in it, but it feels like the Irish Open has kind of been immune to that. Like, it doesn't have that sort of library feel on a Thursday, Friday. It feels like there's actually an amazing atmosphere at the Irish Open every year, even if you're watching it on TV, and then you go to it and it's even better. Like, it doesn't feel that. I can't even think.
Irish golf fans love golf.
Like, that's the thing, and
like, they're genuine enthusiasts, and they're interested in like the run-of-the-mill tour player, and they follow those. It's not just the superstars who get followed. Obviously, they get the main thing, but yeah. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, the gallery that you obviously had following you yesterday wouldn't have been up to the standard that you might expect, but such is life.
Yeah, there you go. Ireland defeat overshadowed by Lukeman concussion row. New Zealand Union may investigate as concern expressed over failure to remove players. So this obviously is an ongoing row around the HIA. Should there have been a HIA at all when there was a suspected concussion? Should it have been removed? Who's responsible for that? That is all going to come out in the wash, and it's just not a great look for rugby. Injuries mount as Farrell sees stocks depleted is the headline on that. Sloppy Ireland open with heavy defeat to Maoris. Scannell happy to hold holiday in Portugal after New Zealand call up. He was literally on the piss having the crack, which you should be at this stage of the season if you're a rugby player, but they're not. Emma Raducanu has been on the front of the Telegraph every time she's played, but she won't be on again. Raducanu's Wimbledon dream ends in tatters. She was beaten. Andy Murray was beaten last night by John Isner.
Britain as a country beaten.
I mean, yeah, it's he's Scottish. Mac at work for us all. Shane Lowry wants the Irish Open's date in the calendar to be looked at again to cater for the absent Rory McIlroy schedule. Lowry's comments came after it was revealed there were no plans to make it a co-sanctioned event with the PGA Tour, but Keith Pelly says that under a new extended and strengthened deal with the PGA Tour, American Chiefs will encourage top stateside players to compete in Ireland. It's kind of like we'd like you to, as opposed to we're incentivising you to. So we'll see. We should be putting pressure on the European Tour to fix that. Blues play it cool. Napoli defender's latest superstar in Bowley sights as he plans explosive start to Stamford Bridge Rain. He's very hands-on. He's like a proper American-style owner. It's like, I've decided I'm just going to be involved in everything. Which is very, very unusual.
Is that what Chelsea fans will want, I wonder?
Maybe, if it buys them the best players in the world. Right, time for Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive.
Oh, wow! Ger Eoin, good morning.
Oh, no mic on.
Oh?
Here we go. Hey, how are you?
Mic was on. Ger Eoin, good morning.
What's the crack?
How are you getting on?
Pretty good. Got some inside information for you, which I'll get to in a moment.
Oh, great.
What have you got?
I've got 4 golfers for the Irish Open at Mount Juliet in Kilkenny. Thomas Peters is the main one at 18 to 1. The Pogues price from a fairy tale in New York. For 4 each way, and Thomas Peters.
You sure it's not 10 to 1? Came in at 10 to 1.
Well, you know, after the money, that's going to be the deluge. After I give this tip, there will be. Obviously, you cut in price.
Good save. I mean, it's an obvious. It's clearly 18 to 1. Everybody knows it's 18 to 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Everyone.
Everybody. So Thomas Pieters doesn't really like playing in America, but he likes playing in the European Tour, or the DP World Tour they now call it. 5 starts in this side of the pond this year, 5 top 15s, was second last week, beaten by Hao Tong-Lee in a playoff, was 12th in this last year, hits the ball a mile, the par 5s will suit him, plays really well. I think he's a really good solid proposition. He's third best ranked player in this field. Thomas Pieters, he's the headline tip in this Irish Open this week each way. Johannes Veerman, the reason why I'm picking him at 50 to 1 for 2 each way, luckily had Lucas Herbert in this last year, and Veerman was his biggest challenger, and he had 2 bogeys down the stretch, finished third. Then he came out 3 weeks later and won. So he showed a bit of resolution, and he's playing better this year than he was last year. He was 10th at the European Open, 20th at the Scandinavian Mixed. Johannes Veerman, the American, at 50 to 1 for 2 each way. He's the second one. Wil Besseling of the Netherlands is 80 to 1 for 2 each way. Played well for the first couple of rounds of the US Open. Was second recently at the European Open, about to break his duck on the tour. Went close there, and was 17th in this last year. Wil Besseling, I think, could do well this week at 80 to 1 for 2 each way. And we got to pick one of our own. The one I picked at 150 to 1 for 2 each way is Nile Carney, who really caught my eye last week. He was 15th at the BMW International Open, 3 rounds, and really good rounds. He was 13 under par for his last 3 rounds. 15th in Belgium, 4 top 12s last year. Won a couple of Irish PGAs, missed the cut last year, and this might have been putting too much pressure on himself. But Nile Carney, someone I've noticed in the last couple of years on the European Tour, doing well. So Nile Carney, Wil Besseling, Johannes Veerman, and Thomas Pieters, lads. That's what we're looking at.
Right.
And
I would say John Catlin.
John Catlin, yeah, who won the Irish Open at Galgorm Castle a couple of years
right.
ago, and obviously knows what to do, likes Parkland courses, not afraid to win. Who gave you was it John himself?
I was just playing with him, and I thought, this guy's playing pretty well. Now, obviously, they're already out, and his odds have lengthened there. So, he's out to 80 to 1 on Paddy Power, so he's not teeing off till half 1. I'm saying get on it, €1 each way at least.
€1 each way on John Catlin. Also, I did a bonus article for OTBSports.com and the OTB app on the John Deere Classic. So I picked 6 horses there, or golfers. Adam Svensson is my headline tip, the Canadian. Adam Svensson at 50 to 1 in the John Deere Classic. If you want to read more about that, you can check out the website, OTBSports.com.
I'm just looking here. Thurston Lawrence is 4 under through 5.
So that's it. He's probably about 1,000 to 1. So
he is ripping it up at the moment.
These Irish Opens can be unusual in terms of their winners.
Yeah, I think the winning total last year was like only
19.
Right. Okay. So they did take it apart a little bit, but not too much. And different weather conditions last year. The rough was very, very difficult yesterday. So there you go. That is.
Do you have any birdies or pars or?
Yeah, back-to-back birdies.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you for asking, John.
Which holes?
6 and 7.
Oh, class. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
He won the Pro-Am.
Well, in the morning, we finished in the prizes in the morning.
What did you get?
2 wine glasses.
A crystal, yeah.
Nice water for crystal wine glasses, yeah.
That's cool.
There you go. I'd recommend it. You should. Dermot and Dave were playing in the afternoon.
Yeah, that was funny. You could see the Sports 5 pictures with Dave in the boiler suit and Dermot looking like somebody who was going to join the Live Tour next week.
You know what? Like it's right there. It's open to somebody to provide that comic relief to all those grim, like Patrick Reed whining. Wow, the PGA Tour. Wow. Like,
isn't it really strange, lads, that everybody you would have expected to join the Live Tour has joined the Live Tour?
No, it's exactly what you would have predicted, isn't it?
You know, like it's every single guy you would have expected to join has joined.
All the assholes are gone from the PGA Tour now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Now, some of them.
Sure about that?
Some of them on the Live are like, wait until you see who else comes. Like, this isn't finished. It's like, well, if they just finished now, you'd be happy enough, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think you'd cut your losses.
Pretty happy and go, all right, lads, off you go. Go on. Have that fake Brooks Koepka versus the Beef, Bryson, all the time. We don't care. We can literally ignore it. I mean, I know the golf journalists are like, oh, we can't ignore this because it's golf and it's still happening and it's revolutionising the game. But the rest of us can just go, we don't care.
The roller skaters team, they keep on changing the team names. I was seeing that during the week. The guys, when they talk about this, almost you can see the soul departing from their bodies when they start talking about this kind of stuff. My schedule, a better schedule. Well, actually, factually, that's not completely correct. I'm going to say everything else. They got better shirts. I got to say something that doesn't say money.
Although it literally says money, live on their shirts now as well.
Pat Perez was pictured with, I don't know whether it was yesterday or not, but pictured with a shirt which is like all dollar signs. Well, dollar bills are all on the shirt.
Like, in fairness to him, he did say, this is like winning the lottery at my stage of life. You know, he was like fairly naked about.
I don't mind it as long as people are honest. Look, there is a bit of a whataboutery about it, and like not everywhere, like the European Tour used to play in Saudi. My issue with the whole thing about Live is the dilution of competition and the fact that sport to me is all about competition, and money should be secondary. But unfortunately, capitalism has ruined the world.
Yeah, I mean, these are just little contractors who are trying to make as much money as they can. That's what this is. They do it through the medium of golf. What else, John? How are you feeling ahead of the weekend's hurling?
I'm feeling, it's very hard to judge Clare and Kilkenny. I think that the Wexford game is exactly what Clare needed, because they were obviously hungover from the Munster final and they really had to dig it out. Kilkenny, I have felt in the last few years, have played probably to the end of their potential, but do they have the talent to play a 80-minute game, which they're going to have to with injury time?
It feels like this year they do have the talent to do that in a way that they might not have had in recent years, that some of their younger players are starting to reach physical maturity, tactical maturity, technical maturity, and they're now, it's their team, and the Outlads are like brilliant to have, but not necessary. Like, I don't think it's going to be TJ who wins the game for them. His frees will keep the teams close, but it's actually going to be Adrian Mullen or Cody or the new defenders who have emerged as absolute rock solid starters for Kilkenny over the last 12 to 14 months, that actually, if Kilkenny win the game, are going to turn it their way. And then obviously there's Tony Kelly back in Croke Park, where he likes it. He's got a good record there, going all the way back to 2013. He's been good.
Yeah, we got Colin Ryan coming to the studio on Saturday for a chat with Kieran Carey, hopefully, as well.
Right, wow.
And we got Paul Murphy down at Croke Park. So, like, we've got a really big build up to the game on Saturday evening. I think it'll be very physical. Can Clare get a few goals? I think it'll be much more straightforward for Limerick on Sunday. I think if Keane Lynch is back, I do think Limerick are better than Galway. I think by a few points. I think Galway are still learning under Henry. And Limerick, like whether it's Limerick Kilkenny or Limerick Clare in the final, there's going to be a brilliant storyline either way.
There's a chance Limerick blow Galway out, isn't there?
I think
100%,
so,
yeah. 6 points is the spread at the moment. It's 1 point in the other game, which you would expect. 6 to me suggests that the bookies are giving Galway a chance. Like, I thought it was actually going to be a little bit bigger than that because of the potential that Limerick have to blow somebody away. So I wonder what is the thing that they're looking at. Even when you look at, say, it's very hard to look at anything in the Cork game and say that Limerick wouldn't beat them significantly, but maybe it's just the Sheffield aspect, the aspect that this team has been to an All-Ireland final, that if you rewind the clocks a few years, you would have said that, especially like 2018, when they get to the final, there wouldn't have been a whole pile between them. It's just the distance that Limerick have travelled since then, and being champions, the crown has rested lightly on their head, and obviously going back to back already is something that people look into as well.
Yeah, and Gerard McInerney looks like he's going to miss the game,
and then you add Cian Lynch back into the Limerick team, like that swing from the from the quarterfinals is a significant enough one as well. But 6 to me suggests that Galway have a chance.
Well, I think the bookies are pricing in the possibility that Limerick have somebody sent off, that their discipline has been something that has been questionable, and that there have been incidents surrounding them that have been remarked about on the TV afterwards, and so that therefore if something happens early there's going to be a red card for it, and that might bring the game back to.
Or is it the fact that the last time Limerick played they couldn't get the job done in normal time, and yes, there were players to come back into the team, but they needed extra time to beat Clare. And if it was Galway against Clare this weekend, who are you picking? You're picking Clare just. So I know it doesn't work like that. Styles make fights, and the style of Clare and their approach to Limerick has been the thing that's given them an extra chance this year. But still, if you had Clare against Galway in the morning, I'm not sure anybody could confidently predict that one either. And one of those two teams got a draw against Limerick. So maybe that's what they're factoring in here. Maybe we're just riding this off a little bit too quickly. Still think Limerick will win.
You had your sports journalist hat on there, John. As a Clare hurling fan, what are you thinking?
I'm quietly confident. I haven't played Kilkenny in 16 years. So look, I'd much rather be playing Kilkenny than Limerick, again. So, yeah, I'm hopeful towards confident.
Right.
Somewhere between hopeful and confident.
All right. That's this week's version of Virtual Insanity. Best of luck.
All right.
You have entered Power Drive.
Right, it's 8:50 this morning. This week on Garda Síochána, with ambassadors from all around Ireland, have launched the hashtag Slow Down campaign. This Garda initiative is to encourage all motorists to slow down on our roads. As of June 21st, 82 people have been killed on our roads so far this year, a stark and worrying figure. The aim of this campaign is to encourage all road users to modify their behaviour on our roads and to encourage all age groups to think about road safety and how they can influence the behaviour of others. In recent years, Ireland has reduced road deaths through a collective effort, and we all have a role to play in saving lives. You can follow on Garda Síochána's Facebook page at Garda Traffic, it's at Garda Traffic on Twitter and Garda Insta on Instagram this week to help share this vital message, and the hashtag is Slow Down. Joining us to talk more about this campaign is Tipperary's own Padraic Maher. Padraic, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
I'm good, lads, and yourselves?
Yeah, campaigns like this, having somebody to come out and talk about it who actually understands what it means on a day-to-day basis, like yourself, it's really important. When you get asked to do something like this, are you absolutely happy to lean into it and say, yeah, I'm happy to be the face of this? We should all be slowing down on the roads.
Yeah, definitely, Ger. Obviously, it's part of my job day in, day out, dealing with incidents like this, unfortunately. But yeah, look, it's vital. And look, Garda Síochána don't just pull these campaigns, out of the sky willy-nilly. Like, there's stats behind these reasons why they are. And unfortunately, there's been 83 this year so far, and we're only coming to the end of June. That's way too many for any given year, never mind for 6 months. So, yeah, it's very important, I suppose everyone in the community, all our friends, our family, our colleagues are aware, and, keep in mind that, it is a big need for us all just to slow down. Speed limits are there for the reason, Ger, and I know we all kind of give out at times, and you might have your friend or that giving out that they were caught with a speed van or something, but they're there for a reason, and they're saving lives every day in, day out. So, yeah, it is vital that we're all aware of this campaign, and I suppose I just urge everyone to be aware of it and pass the word around. And we've all seen it in social media the last few days, so hopefully everyone's becoming more aware.
The thing about road traffic accidents is that for most people it's an item on the news bulletin, or it's on your Google Maps telling you it flashes red because there's been an accident, and so therefore try and avoid the area. For you guys, who it is part of your day-to-day job, you actually go to the scene of the accident and you see the devastation for the people who get killed, but also for those people who survive and have life-changing injuries.
Yeah, it's not, and I suppose until thankfully everyone doesn't have to deal with it too much, but we see it day in, day out, as you were saying, Ger, and it's not nice when you're going meeting families, of people that have been injured or even killed in accidents, and it's just not a nice place to be, and it's not a nice situation for a family to be put in, or a friend to be put in. We've had colleagues being in the same instance, so I suppose it's not till then that it really opens your eyes and how much it hits someone, and it's just very important that something simple like for us all just to slow down, be aware of our behaviour on the roads, slowing down with speed limits, mobile phone use in the car, all them small things can make a big difference, to all our lives. And yeah, exactly. Once we see it firsthand, it really opens your eyes to the hurt and devastation it can cause.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we can keep the collisions down if we can at all as a community.
I was driving home yesterday from the Irish Open, and there was an item on the news about a coroner hearing in Donegal town about an accident that had happened in Bundoran, and just the details of it. They were travelling at 121 kilometres an hour, and I looked around me and there was loads of people travelling around that same pace. I can tell you I slowed down straight away. Immediately I was like, okay, there's literally no point in this. I think sometimes we're a bit reluctant to talk about just how horrific the outcomes will be, and the difference that 40 kilometres an hour makes between 80 and 120, or between 80 and 40 kilometres an hour in the right zones. And actually, I don't know, maybe people just tune out. Maybe it just becomes noise in the background, road deaths and how we report on them and how we talk about them. But I think it's really important that, you know, the first-hand accounts that you guys give of that devastation of knocking on somebody's door and telling them that their loved one has passed away in a car accident, that maybe if we do a bit more of this, it might help people slow down.
Yeah, you'd be hoping that's the reason why the campaign is there and making everyone aware. And look, I suppose if you just talk to someone who was, you know, being on the receiving end of bad news in relation to someone, a friend or a colleague or a family member being involved in an accident, who has been seriously injured or tragically killed, you know, it's not nice. And like, you know, speed limits are there for the reason. No matter if you're going through a 60 kilometre zone and you're going 70 kilometres through it, it's 60 kilometres for a reason. And look, I've been through accidents over the years through my work that, you know, you've been speaking with, you know, traffic collision investigators and, you know, and things like that. And they'd be saying that, you know, 10 kilometres can make such a difference to either, you know, saving a person's life or someone getting tragically killed, you know. So, look, you just hope everyone become aware this week of the reasons why An Garda Síochána are, I suppose, driving this campaign this week. You know, 83 people in 6 months is too many people, like, and you know, hopefully we can bring them numbers down majorly over the next couple of weeks and months.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's your day job. The reason that everybody knows you in Ireland is because you were one of the best hurlers of your generation. How are you finding no longer identifying as an intercounty hurler? What's that whole period been like for you to get back into civilian life?
Yeah, it's been strange, Ger, to be honest with you. I suppose I'm getting used to it a bit now, just trying to fill the void of, I suppose, that routine I had for so long, you know, being involved in a high performance setup with Tipperary, you know. So yeah, it's strange, but look, I'm getting to do a lot of other things in my life now, and I'm enjoying going to all the matches. I've been to so many games this year, with Tip not even being involved, you know. So it's great to be able to go and to sit back and relax and actually watch the games and, I suppose, analyse them and try and understand what other teams do be getting up to. So I'm really enjoying it, and yeah, looking forward to the weekend's games now again myself.
Are you going to those games as a potential future coach or potential future manager? Is that in your head? Are you going just as a hurling fan? How have you settled in? How would you classify yourself when you're there in the stands?
Yeah, look, I suppose I'd be going. I prefer if Tipperary were there, Ger, to be honest with you, to go support them. But unfortunately, that's not working out this year. But no, definitely as a hurling fan, and you're number one. But as I said there, look, you'd be looking kind of with a kind of a coach's hat on in a way to see what teams are getting up to, how they're setting up, you know, matchups, you know, how our players are, how we'll say if Kilkenny are going to do with Tony Kelly, etc. So look, it's intriguing that kind of way. And I suppose I'm only out of the scene, so I have some sort of understanding of what way teams will go about it. So it's kind of interesting for me to go and analyse it in that certain way. But yeah, mostly just being a hurling fan and being able to go to these games with no pressure and being able to go and enjoy them and watch them. You know, it's a different experience, but it's one I'm enjoying.
Did you get to the Tipperary games this year, and did you enjoy them?
I did, Owen, yeah. I got to them. To be honest with you, I didn't enjoy many of them, to be honest with you. I went down to the first one, Blow Walsh Park, and you know, it was actually tough to watch it for myself because to really hit me that day, the first time that I wasn't really involved watching the lads run out on the pitch that day. But I suppose the ball was turned in, and you know, my brother playing and that, so my thoughts and feelings kind of turned straight away into be a supporter and try and support lads as best I could. And unfortunately, I went to the rest of the games this year and it didn't turn out great for us. But yeah, disappointing year from a Tipperary perspective, to be sure. Yeah, hopefully there's a lot of learnings for a few people in it now, to be honest with you.
Are you quiet in the stands? Are you shouting? Or how does that work? Are you like, oh look, I've been out there, I don't want anybody shouting? Or are you like screaming and yelling and roaring?
Yeah, I suppose I'd be kind of trying to support him from a point of view that I know what the players are going through and what they're dealing with, whether things are going good or not going so good. So but I do find myself, I'll be jumping off the seat a good bit, all right, and you know, some players can probably do better, and you're probably, you know, trying to encourage them to do that bit better. But
I'd say they still recognise your voice as well. They're like, hang on a second, what's going on? Where did that come from?
I don't know that, but they're probably saying, what's that Egypt doing here now? And one of those again, I thought he was gone, but yeah, no, it's a surreal experience this year, to be honest with you. And look, I was talking to Ken McGrath a few months ago when I retired, and he said to me, once you get the first year out of the way, the rest will be, everything else will be fine. You'll be like any normal supporter. So hopefully he's right.
It does sound like you're interested in management, though.
Yeah, maybe so. It's I suppose I'm just helping out my club at home there now at the moment, and just to get a taste for it and see, do I enjoy it? And maybe it's not something I might enjoy, or already I see there's so much work involved in being involved in a management team, even with just the club. So we'll see how it goes this year, and we'll go from there. But yeah, look, as I said, you're just, I suppose it's natural in me to go and watch these games. I suppose just to see what way teams are setting up and how they're going about their business. We
were just chatting before you came on air about the semi-finals this weekend, and I'd say the Galway camp internally completely does not reflect the conversation that's happening around the country this week, which seems to be how many points are Limerick going to win by. Just from your own experience, you beat Limerick in 2019 at the end of the round robin before losing the Munster final, and then last year obviously you had a good old lead against them at half-time, didn't get the job done in the end. There was, I guess, an element of that your tip team that knew what to do at least against Limerick. So what can Galway do this weekend when you take your own experiences into it?
Yeah, I suppose they're coming off, they beat him below in the Gaelic grounds at the start of the year in the league, and everyone was kind of vying him up to be this, the physicality of Galway will match and possibly beat Limerick. Personally myself, I find it so hard to find a way of, or a reason why Galway are going to win the game, to be honest with you. I just think the big thing for Limerick was to get through that Munster Championship. There was a few games there which would have been tricky for them, and they were coming off, I suppose, a reasonably poor league campaign by their standards, but they passed that Munster Championship with flying colours, and I just can't see them. I think 2019 against Kilkenny is going to be ringing in their ear for the last few weeks since the Munster final of when they slipped up against Kilkenny and got caught in that semi-final. I just think that's going to stand to them this year. They have a lot of the same players involved, and I just don't see a form coming from Galway from the last few games. I thought they got very lucky against Cork. Come through, Cork didn't take all their chances. But in saying that, then lads, as a player, then you'd love to be in the Galway dressing room all the same, because you're coming in, there's no one giving you a chance. It's backs against the wall. You're against the All-Ireland champions, and you've beaten them already this year in the league, so you have a way of beating them. You have the players that can beat them. It's just a matter of getting the performance out of them, but they're all going to have to give unbelievable man of the match performances, I feel, for them to get over the line.
What is that way? What does a Galway win look like in your head if it happens this weekend?
Well, I think Galway, looking through Henry, since Henry's taken over, they're all big physical men, and they'll all match the Limerick lads probably in height and weight and strength and things like that. It's just a matter of trying to get the bodies back into the middle zone of the pitch, I think, where Limerick do a lot of their damage and turnovers and things like that. I think Galway are going to have to use their physicality there a lot, win that middle third of the pitch. You see Cotton Mannion going back down the pitch, turning over ball in his own half back line. Joe Cooney's back there. Conor Cooney moving back and just getting the ball into, hopefully, Conor Whelan inside, who could do the damage. But he's going to need support. There's a lot of pressure being on his shoulders the last, just definitely this year and the last couple of years for Galway, especially with Joe gone. So you just need to give him, I suppose, get the bodies behind the ball, turn it over, but also get support into Conor Whelan as quick as they can, because we know Limerick are not going to move too much. They're going to hold their shape as best they can. So they're going to need support for Conor Whelan. But it's going to be a massively physical game in the middle third, I think, lads. And it's just whoever will come out on top of that, will win the game, obviously. But yeah, Galway are going to need to have all guns firing on Sunday, I feel, to get over the line.
When you think back to that Munster final and the second half performance of Limerick in particular, everybody talks about the All-Ireland final being their signature performance, but they were so good in that second half against you guys. What was the difference between the first and the second half now in retrospect? Is there anything you can pinpoint and go, okay, they did something slightly different that caused us, I don't know, whatever, we couldn't respond, that gave them the space? Or was it just like a masterpiece from Limerick?
I think structurally in the second half they were definitely more stable at their back and midfield. I thought their midfielders sat out a bit, so they invited us to, I suppose, their forwards were putting enough pressure on our backs and midfielders to hit the ball longer to them, So they were just soaking up the pressure, and then they were able to deliver a good ball into their forwards. And they got an early goal, and momentum just shifted. You could feel it in the stadium that day, lads. And when the Limerick support get behind them and the energy gets into their team, it was just like a tidal wave coming towards us, and we just couldn't stop it, to be honest with you. And we had great movement in our far lane the first half. We were dragging Limerick all over the pitch. We probably took them out of their comfort zone a small bit. We were getting the ball in over their half back line and making them turn in towards their own goal. But in the second half, we were just, any ball we were getting down was landing on their half back line, and that's what they love in Limerick. And the energy just changed in the game, and they just forced us, and score by score, they had it back in the space of 15 minutes, which was incredible, from our point of view, it was very disappointing, but that's what this team can do to you, and they seem to be getting even better year on year.
We had Cadigan on last week, and I asked him the same question. If you could go back now into that dressing room at half time, knowing what's coming, could you do anything to stop it?
Yeah, I suppose there was enough experience from us we had on the pitch that day, Ger, to you'd imagine that we should have, but they just came with such energy, and as I said, you could feel the shift in momentum. Like one of us should have went down with an injury, or as I often said to the lads after, one of us even should have started a shemazel or a bit of a row just to break momentum after the first few minutes, because it happened so quickly. They were getting points. They got the goal. Straight away it was just like, lads, someone just do something to stop momentum here, or even we should have brought our own team back out the field towards our own backline. But I suppose it's championship hurling, and it's hot and heavy, and to make these decisions it needs a lot of communication, and we were just overawed by the second half performance, really, and it just, especially Keane Lynch took control of that game for them, and I suppose that's in a game like that, that's why the Munster final was so important win for Clare, because they had no Keane Lynch, but he was the go-to man that day against us, and he just single-handedly kind of dragged them back into that game,
I have a feeling in retrospect, when this Limerick era passes and when they're all retired, that game is going to end up being one of those really important hinge points, because of what happened in the first half, where you guys gave one of your best performances of 35 minutes, but it turns out you did it against one of the greatest teams of all time. So it's probably zero consolation to you guys that you were all on the field when this thing happened. But when you think back against the battles that you had and your team had with the greatest Kilkenny team that there has been, they define that rivalry, and this Limerick team hasn't had a great rival to go toe-to-toe with them just yet, but in that one game we saw absolutely everything from them. So I don't know, there'll be books written about that. There'll be a 30 for 30 made about that game, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately you could be right, but yeah, as you said there, this Limerick team hasn't really had a team to constantly knock on their door and test them. You could say Clare this year, all right, they've played 3 games, and they haven't beaten Clare over 70 minutes into 3 games. So, maybe Clare are coming with something, but to be interesting, Clare have a big game to get over the first on Saturday before they can even think about playing possibly Limerick in the final. So, but yeah, in fairness to Clare this year, have been putting up to Limerick toe-to-toe. To be very interesting if 2 met in the final now, what way it will go after the final.
I appreciate this is a cheap question, but was it easier to play against that great Kilkenny team or easier to play against this great Limerick team?
Jesus, to be honest, I suppose I've said a few times that I always enjoyed playing against that Kilkenny team. There was no real, I wouldn't say tactics, but there was no, it was like you were going out taking on your man, and it's man on man, and you have to beat your man, and it was fairly straightforward. You were either up to the task or you weren't. And I thoroughly enjoyed them games over the years. Anytime we played Kilkenny, they were all fantastic games and great to be involved in. And I suppose Limerick is a bit different. I suppose the game has changed, I suppose, towards the latter few years there, especially in my career, that, Limerick probably have their own kind of way of playing, style of play. They kind of suck you into their own way of playing, which is, I suppose, what every team finds hard to go against, but they're very good at it. And like I said before, if I was playing full back for Tipperary 10 years ago, it was 3-3 inside in the full back line. Now against Limerick, you could be doing 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, and there's loads of space around you. So if I had to answer your question, I prefer to play against the old Kilkenny team.
Very good. Just one last thing I wanted to ask about, Paddy, is just like Ger was making the point earlier that maybe when you look at the odds for this weekend, that it's only 6 points between Limerick and Galway, according to the bookies, that they're possibly factoring into the occasion that there could be a wild sending off this weekend. And these sort of moments can hinge on things that happen in a split second, as we saw in the 2019 All-Ireland final for sure as well. I just wanted to ask you about the art of shouldering right now in hurling, the impact of landing a big shoulder on somebody, that momentum shifter, and just how difficult it is to nail it right now, because we obviously saw it in the quarter-final. Dahi Burke on Seamus Harnedy, that big hit. When people slowed it down, people said, look, that was shoulder to head, and maybe a different referee sends him off. Even though live watching it, I thought, wow, what an unbelievable shoulder that is. So how heightened is that experience right now, trying to nail shouldering when you're trying to put an impact or put a marker down on an opponent?
Yeah, look, to be honest with you, it's kind of dying out of the game, isn't it? Because, like, why would a player put himself in that position of probably getting, you can't say probably getting sent off, because if you don't meet him shoulder on shoulder, now I thought Dahi Burke's was a brilliant shoulder, to be honest with you. I know slowing down these things probably make them look a bit worse than what they are, but like, you're putting yourself in a position, you're jeopardising your team by getting sent off, and unfortunately, I feel it should be part of the game, but the way the rules are going now, if you anything near the head or the neck area and you're in trouble, and we've seen it in the football last weekend. I know the shoulder probably timed a bit wrong, but you're putting your team and yourself in a lot of trouble if you do go in with a tackle like that. So unfortunately, it probably is dying out of the game, but it is a very difficult skill to probably nail as well, shoulder on shoulder when everything is going 100 miles an hour around you. And I know people often refer to my shoulder against Joe Canning a few years ago, but like, if that happened now, I'm putting myself and my team in massive jeopardy of me getting sent off and the team going on to 14 players. And that's just the way the rules are gone, unfortunately. And I know it's in the greater scheme of things, it's to look after players and their health. But I think, there are certain ones like the Dahi Burke shoulder. I think, Seamus Harnedy bounced back up off the ground straight away. There was no issue there. A lot of the players are strength conditioned to top quality now. But unfortunately, the way the rules are, I'd say these tackles aren't even being attempted really that much anymore, because, there is a fair chance that you could receive a red card for your actions.
So if you rewound the clocks to that moment with Joe Canning and put it into today's conditions with refereeing and rules, would you pull out of that shoulder or just not go for it or tackle him in a different way?
Look, I say that when you're playing on Ireland, you find it in front of 60,000 and the energy is going, and you it's very hard to make split decisions like that. But definitely, I suppose now that was 6 years ago. Now I suppose 2022, you would have to think about what way you are approaching the tackle. Maybe you might just have to stand face to face and try and hold them up or something. But as I said, it's literally millimeters of the difference of you getting a red card or being a fantastic tackle. And as I said, I don't think players are going to take that chance. The way the rules and the way the games are being officiated now.
Can you practice it?
Well,
I don't think it's something you can really practice. Like usually you tackling like that, you practicing off tackle bags or something in training. But I don't think it's something you can really. You might get away in training because obviously training games might be refereed obviously by the coach or whatever, and he's going to be a bit more lenient. But like as I said, I don't think it's something. Like I think Dahi Burke just timed it pretty much nearly perfect, I think. But again, if he was a second early or second late there, he was dusted and Galway were in trouble. So no, I don't think it's something. I think it's something that has to naturally happen, or you just have to have a good timing of it really as a defender, or even if it's a forward in the back.
Because we were saying at the weekend, Owen was at the game and wasn't sure exactly in the stadium whether or not the red was justified. On TV, when they slowed it down from a different angle, you can see that it probably did deserve a red card. I think the referee made the decision, or certainly had confidence in making the decision, because there was blood drawn. And if you go back to you both ended up being blood subbed. Is that right? Both yourself and Canning ended up getting blood substitutions.
That's right. Yeah, I think I definitely went off the blood sub anyway. I split my head, but yeah, the football game the weekend. Like it's be interesting. If there was no blood, would there be no card? That's the thing. Did the referee work off the? It was my first reaction to Ger, to be honest, when he seen the blood. and the Galway player jogging off to be treated, you know, maybe that made his decision up for him, I don't know. But I think he was justified then when the camera slowed down the tackle. But again, you know, if he was, you know, he'd probably took a couple of seconds too early, the Armagh player. If he was a couple of seconds later, it could have been a perfect shoulder to shoulder, you know. So again.
And did you guys clash heads? Is that where the blood came from?
Well, something of his head. I'd say his shoulder went into his head. Was it? I don't know. I'm not too sure now. But again, then you know, when you see blood in the head area, well, obviously, you know, you're not supposed to be tackling someone's head, obviously. So he was hitting the head, and he shouldn't have been. So I think the referee was justified with his card. Yeah,
no, fair enough. It's very, because it's so high risk at this stage, where the referee's making a split decision, and the crowd are absolutely baying. In this case, metaphorically and literally, for blood. So, look, Paulie, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us. Enjoy the games at the weekend. Who are you calling in the Clare-Kilkenny game?
Jesus, I tell you, if you were giving me a 20 euro bet now, Ger, I'd be picking a draw on Saturday's game, and I'd go for Limerick by 7 to 9 point win on Sunday.
And who wins the penalty shootout then?
Oh God, can we go to replay now?
Apparently not.
Oh God, and I don't agree with that anyway.
Right. Jeez. Well, we'll leave you on the fence for that one then, Paddy. Good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
That's Padraic Maher there. A reminder this week on Garda Síochána, with ambassadors from all around Ireland, have launched the hashtag Slowdown campaign. This Garda initiative is to encourage all motorists to slow down on our roads. Follow the hashtag Slowdown across on Garda Síochána's social channels to help support the campaign. 9:15. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Golf Weekly is heading to Killeen Castle next Tuesday. That's the 5th of July. A brilliant day lined up with a Peter Lorre clinic, live podcast recording, food, prizes, and of course a round of golf at the Jack Nicklaus Design Killeen Castle. Golf Weekly golf days are exclusive events for friends of the pod. So what are you waiting for? Get on board. Sign up now at otbsports.com/golf weekly. Here's on our schedule for OTB Sports Radio today. OTB Gold at 1 o'clock is Jack McCaffrey. Leaders' questions with Stuart Lancaster at 3. Our retro panel is GA Democracy at 4 o'clock. OTB Gold is Nigel Mansell. And then Thursday night, live as ever with Nathan. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social channels. Up next, we're live in studio with former Dundalk manager Vinny Perth for an Irish football transfer special.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
It's very difficult for Manchester United to stop that. What do you want them to do? Come out and deny every single link? With 22 links to different players on one day last week alone.
These five-a-sides are happening because he organises them. And he says he's not playing. I'm concerned because he's so good. Like, Sheahan is the man. If you ask anybody who's played with him, they'd say exactly the same. So even though he hasn't got the sort of games on the board, he's still one of the best players people have ever seen.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts, and download the OTB Sports app.
Things that put people off on a first date. Showing up late and getting your name wrong. Always a great start. Looking at their phone more than you? Hello? Someone who only talks about themselves. Oh, really? God, aren't you great? Look, no one said dating is perfect, but at GoDating.ie, we promise we'll always try and find your perfect match. Because somewhere out there, there's someone for you. And GoDating.ie will help you find them. Yes, even you, socks and sandals guy. Go on, go for it with GoDating.ie.
Marginal gains? XG? Top speed? Recovery? What's it all about? Want to improve but don't know where to start? With more data than ever now available, OTB Sports have teamed up with Whoop to cut through the noise and help you raise your game, no matter the sport. OTB Sports are delivering the metrics that matter. Meaningful metrics in partnership with Whoop, the personalised digital fitness and health coach that helps you unlock your inner potential. See whoop.com for more. Follow OTB Sports social channels for the best insights and stats this season.
OTB AM
with Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, it's 18 minutes past 9. I'm delighted to say Vinny Perth is with us in studio. Vinny, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, all good.
We get a lot of speculation at this time of year. It's for those of us who enjoy a bit of gossip around transfers, this is a good time of year. And we'd focus on the Irish players and those who need a move versus those who don't need a move. So you've been looking at this first. Who's on your list for players who do need a move?
I suppose like the obvious ones are Jason Knight for me. I think Derby being relegated and doing so well and playing so many games. I think that's an important one, and it's also how important he is for our side. I think it's huge that he gets a bit of clarity. My concern around Jason has been we've not seen lots of rumours around him so far.
Yeah.
But that can often, he could have something sorted out for argument's sake, but it's been fairly quiet around him, so he certainly needs a move. Derby looks a bit of a mess, so for me that's a really, really important one for us, and because he's so important to the team.
Yeah, like he is essentially a starter at this point.
Yeah, I think he's played himself into it. We have seen inconsistencies with him. With so many of our young players, I think the last window was a massive lesson for us all in terms of we've seen the inconsistencies in the squad, and I think that comes with so many young players coming through.
Yeah. So would a season in League One be very beneficial if he played every single minute, or has he gone past that stage now? He needs to be Championship minimum.
I'd like to think he needs to be Championship minimum. I think it's very, very difficult. Like, the problem is the club he's at. When you look at people coming through, say Wigan last year who got promoted, you're not sure. Derby's a big club, but you're not sure that club are going to be chasing promotion.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're around the mess of a club, your form ultimately gets affected. So for me, I think it's probably crucial for his career that he gets out there in the next couple of months. And I think it's so, again, I can't emphasise enough how important he is to that Irish team and how we play.
We've talked a lot about that number 10 role, and is he the player you're kind of earmarking for that into the future, or even kind of like...
So I was listening earlier on, Owen talks about, I don't know if this is a new word, but the depth chart. Must bring that one into football. It's been a good...
that's
the
a good
rugby.
idea. We've been doing it for rugby for ages.
Yeah, so...
Football Manager have it.
Oh,
so
well, maybe I need to start playing Football Manager.
Yeah.
So, but when you think of that position, we've got him, we've got
That's
James.
the most withering thing anybody's ever said in this show.
Yeah, I know.
Should it's a good game.
Right.
So I heard.
I think Owen was a little bit addicted to it for a while.
Right, so... But when we think of that position, right, we've got Jason who's made a huge impact. We get that. We Jamie McGrath, who's sensational away in Portugal, I would say. And again, his club form didn't help him in the last window. And then beyond that, we're probably going to Conor Hurahan in that type of position if we're going to play that way. So we really are struggling. We haven't really... I've cried for Alan Brown on this show. I think he's someone that has done it at a decent level in the Championship, but we probably struggle in that position. So this is probably the problem with where we are with Irish football. We need some of these young players to come through and
so minutes for a night next season in the Championship at a club who play a decent style of football. Do you have anybody in mind where you think he'd be good, or is there?
Well, no, you look at clubs like someone like Middlesbrough who've done some decent business, and some Irish players, you could see them, it looks like they're going to chase promotion to a point, not recklessly, but it looks like they're doing it in a sort of good way. Being in and around Middlesbrough, you can, in terms of the club, as part of the pro licence, brilliant club, and you would say if you were looking at now, somewhere like Middlesbrough would really, really good and probably suit his style.
Okay, so next on the list, Will Smallbone?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one because he sort of hasn't made a senior debut yet, but I don't think he has now. But when I watch the 21s, I've been to a lot of their games recently, and in this campaign, he looks one that's probably above the level of everyone else in the squad. And I know his goals, people will say, well, his goals, that's an obvious thing to say, but it's more than that. He's come back from a really serious knee injury, and he's got back in and around that Southampton squad. But I see they're willing to let him go on loan, which is, people would see that maybe is that negative. No, I think it's part of his progression because he's under contract till 2024. So I think that's one where he looks a cut above everything else that's coming through at the moment. And we all know these young players can come late and different things, but he looks like one that particularly, I would say, we sort of struggling in midfield, again going back to our depth charts. Where's our 6, 8 and 10s? And he looks like definitely one that we could do in a move to the Championship.
Where does he play?
Well, he's played in the Irish team. He's played narrow off for the 21s. He's played narrow off the world, but he's by and large that sort of number 8. He'd be very similar in style, I would say, to Jason Malumbi. He would have a lot of similar attributes. The two of them would be very similar.
Okay, so we really need him to get some game time to see if he can get into the senior squad and then start pushing for a place.
Yeah, and again, it's like I think this Irish squad has a lot of strength and depth, but only in certain areas. I think when you look at where we struggle, I think if something happened to Josh Cullen, for argument's sake, where's our natural number 6? I don't see it, and I think his levels have to go up. If you look at our fullback positions, yes, we've got Matt Doherty, yes, we've got Seamus Coleman, but like when you look at the left, our probably first choice is a battle at the moment between James McLean and Enda Stevens, and then you're going into, say, someone like Joe Bagan again, another one that is interesting. We sort of tend to the Premiership Irish people, like, but he's played over 20 games for Cardiff in the Championship. Again, just a young left back coming through. So, you know, we're heading in the right direction, but the key is these moves this summer for a lot of these players, small bones and so many of them.
Next is Troy Parrott.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because Troy Parrott was the saviour of Irish football not that long ago. You know, we really spoke highly of him, and I don't think his form has necessarily went off the charts. He just went to, when you go down to the level League One, it's really difficult. It's for want of better words, proper man's football. You've got to be ready, and it took time. But when you look at Troy, you see somebody who looks like he's aged a couple of years in the last 6 months. In his interviews, in his in his training regime, he's on holidays at the moment, and I believe on social media he's putting up videos of him training on the beach, where we have seen videos of him being in Dubai and
having
probably,
a party.
And I mean, there's small things. People need to enjoy themselves, but at the same time, there's a mindset from Troy there. So when you look at the club he's at, Son and Kane are 30, 31. Is he the next one for Spurs that they're going to develop? We don't know. But I think a loan move, and again away from League One in a Championship club where he's really tested, and we find out about him, and we find out, is he ready? Is he ready to make next to the mix?
Are Tottenham like too big at this moment? Like last season almost would have felt like the perfect time, because you would have had not Champions League football. You would have had was it Conference League and was it Europa? I can't remember. Playing at a level that's not Champions League. So between Premier League, Champions League, he may get like first weekend of January in the FA Cup, maybe a few EFL Cup games. Is that going to be enough really for someone at 20 years of age?
Yeah, like sometimes we're guilty of saying, and it's a big thing in football where they say, got to go on loan, got to play. Sometimes it's great to be around the highest level of world football, which Spurs, the Premiership, is. But I think when you look at the clubs that seem to be interested in Swansea, Middlesbrough, Preston, QPR, they're sort of middle to high end Championship clubs. If you went to someone like that far exceeds sitting on a bench for Spurs, absolutely, or battling to get into the squad.
He's done that already as well for a period of time at Tottenham. Like, I mean, is maybe not like, maybe you go back, maybe a full season playing with Harry Kane in training is something that actually brings you on. But like,
what's the story?
He's not already completed that.
How beneficial is that? Like,
it's huge. It's absolutely huge. But there's like a sweet spot where you can stay too long.
Right.
So, like, again, we look at someone like Kevin Kelleher, and for me, being around that Liverpool squad, I wouldn't be in a rush. If I was advising Kevin, I wouldn't be in a rush to go on loan. Where everyone else is, you're operating at the highest level in world football. I mean, you go down to League One, League Two, Championship. It's difficult.
One of the whispers that we heard about Kevin Kelleher was that one of the Dutch Premier League or the Dutch Eredivisie teams who have qualified for the Champions League might be interested in taking him. Or, you know, it's certainly been floated as if this was something, if he was to go to somewhere like that where there was Champions League football, would that be better than going to the Championship? Is that where you suddenly go, ooh, now I'm interested?
Eredivisie football and Championship, there's not a lot in the difference. You could probably see how that Saturday, Wednesday in the Championship might suit a young player.
Right.
Now his style is very much suited to Eredivisie, and he's so calm on the ball, and his distribution is sensational. But look, they're really difficult judgment calls. There's like, people just think you need to play, and I get that. But it's been in around some of the best manager in the world, best goalkeeper in the world, every single day.
So he should stay.
For me, he stays at Liverpool. Like, could you imagine Alisson? I don't actually curse the player, but imagine Alisson got an injury.
Well, yeah, right? He has done before.
Right, and something 6, 8, 10 weeks. Imagine sitting in Cardiff or Middlesbrough while someone else is taking your spot there in Champions League football, and he's played in some of the biggest games in football, in in terms of big finals, Champions League games. Imagine somebody sitting there. Now, it's a judgment call. He's only young. He's as a goalkeeper terms.
Well, he's got another 20 years if he wants it.
Yeah, at least 10 to 15 at the highest level.
Yeah.
So I think the patience there is the key. And with young players, that can be difficult, I get it. But I wouldn't be in a rush if it was Keevan Kelleher.
Okay. Jeff Hendrick and Nathan Collins are the last two on the list of players that should move. Hendrick just needs to play games, right? He's at that stage of his career now.
Yeah, because when we look at our midfield at the moment, and people have been critical of Jeff and his performance at different stages, and some cases rightly so, other not so, because of, I think he was a little bit exposed in terms of the shape of our midfield. But people like Jeff Brown, Alan Brown and Conor Huron are so important to this young squad. And I don't think you can emphasise that enough, how that we need these experienced players still in and around our squad over the next 2 to maybe 4 years. And I think Newcastle, he's not going to be at Newcastle. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But he went to QPR and didn't play. He played maybe 10 games. And for someone of his quality, I think the next choice he gets, and what we've got to do as a football sort of public, is accept if our players are playing the Championship, that is good enough level for where we're currently at. So huge window for Jeff Hendrick, and as part of the bigger overall Irish squad, because we don't have strength and depth in that midfield.
And with Collins, the list of clubs who are interested, it's phenomenal. So what do you do?
I'm this one I'm on the fence in. Like, you put Nathan Collins in as in needs a move, because, you know, is that train passing now and it's time to jump? Really difficult one. Or are Burnley looking at this saying, unless we get close to 30 million for this kid, what's the point of selling him? We paid 15 for him. We've got to make good money on him, or else use him to get back into the Premiership. People, you know, Burnley have signed a couple of players, and people are presuming, oh well, they've signed a centre half. That must be because they let Nathan Collins go. I don't think that's necessarily the case, because they've lost Ben Mee and Tarkowski. So it looks like, would Nathan Collins benefit from playing week in, week out in the Championship, being the real leader for that squad, being sort of, I'm not going to say captain, I don't know who else they'll keep, but I mean the main centre half of a team at that level,
or
go
manager.
To Newcastle.
And Vincent Kompany as well.
Yeah, and they're all such difficult judgment calls. That means I don't know the right answer to it. My advice would be, depending on the club.
Right. So if you're going to play week in, week out in the Premier League, go. But if you're going to be a squad player who plays whatever cup matches, don't go.
But by and large, like, guys, how many Premiership clubs just have two centre halves? Every time you're going to a Premiership club, you're going and you're battling for your place.
Yeah, they have 6, most of them.
Yeah. You know, maybe some like Burnley have stuck with 2, but that's more down to Sean Dyche's management and things. If he was signing for Leicester, I just see that as a dream move for him. I think you could see him playing there. You could see, all right, they've got Fofana.
They're going to sell
brilliant, but
they're going to cash in for Fofana as soon as he plays 10 games in a row.
Exactly. They're looking at probably the next window, the Christmas window. He's gone for 60-70 million, you would imagine. So perfect.
And that's better than going straight to one of the super clubs where you're never going to play and you could end up like Nathan Aki.
But I've heard talk of our Manchester United interest in him. Like, I don't know whether we've got green tinted glasses here. Like, as much as being brilliant with Irish lenses, are people looking at him going, yeah, he's going to replace Harry Maguire? I don't think so. I think he's got another step to make, and that could be at Burnley getting promoted, or it could be, as we said, a Leicester or a Brighton, for argument's sake.
Okay, so we've already said you think Kelleher should stay. Some players that should stay at the clubs that there's been speculation around. The 2 lads at Norwich in particular, Adam Ida coming back off injury, Andrew Modelli coming back off injury as well. A season playing week in, week out, touch wood, where the injuries are off for them.
And again, I know I'm potentially repeating myself, or I must be, but just because they've fallen into the Championship, that's why I leave them in. Like, they could benefit so much by this week in, week out football. Both of them have the potential to be real stars. I made the mistake of talking about Andrew and Oma Bamidele and Rio Ferdinand, and I won't make that mistake again. But he's such a good
I don't think
player.
it was a mistake. We should all dream high.
Well, absolutely. But saying it out loud is different. Look, what I mean is, I think the world of that player.
Yeah.
I think, but obviously is with his injuries now. This is really good. Norwich have, you know, in English football terms, really stable, well-run club. They're either a championship or premiership club by and large, and it's brilliant opportunity for them just to play week in, week out.
Good manager who's got a team out of that division, who knows what it takes to keep a team up as well. I'm a big fan of that.
And we were starting to see the best of Adam, either in terms of just before his injury. It was like he'd learned the game. It was like he was starting to grow into his role. So I think potentially the two of them have a real big season ahead of them. Getting to that 30-35 games would be huge for them. So potentially that's excellent.
And Michael Obafemi, he's in the right place for them.
Yeah, and someone like Michael, and it's the same with a lot of young players, but you could tell he's found a home. When you listen to the manager speak about him, it's very much they're in sync.
Yeah, but that's after a period. It's after a period of tough love at the start where they were like, this guy's not fit enough.
Yeah,
and then they got him fit and he started scoring goals.
He wasn't fit enough,
and he responded to that. So that's the best part, because you've seen other players who've been told they're not fit, they're not putting it in, and they huff.
Yeah,
and they're like, oh, that's your fault, not mine. It's like, that's not going to work.
No, but
come through that.
By and large, like we have the superstars who come through no matter what. Right, but by and large, most young players go through a phase where they're challenged in all sports, to be fair. And I think with these guys, same with Troy Parker, the penny drops. I think it's and even going back to Smallbone, maybe that injury was just what you need sometimes as a young player. Just time out a game to go, right, reassess, what do I have to do. I think the way Obafemi finished the season and the way he was a real bright spark in the Irish squad, you could see, I wouldn't say he's difficult to manage, but you could see that at times you would have to, like, and I actually think Stephen is a great manager because he embraces these type of characters. We've had them at different levels, of course, but whether it's been the Richie Towers of the world or all the way through as 21s, whether it's been Aaron Connolly, Troy Parrott, good experience with these people. And sometimes they're almost free spirits. You've got to give them, create an environment for them to be superstars, and we have a real chance with some of these young players.
All right, you've given us a projected team here which has an average age of 21.2, which is fairly sensational, right? So we're not saying this team is going to take the field,
and nor should it, or it could. But if this team started and everyone in terms of ended up, what would we be worried about? We'd worry about Jason Knight getting a move, okay? And
I'm just going to name it out for our radio listeners. So it's Bazunu in goals. You've got Owen Bombadilli at right back, Collins and O'Shea at centre back, and Joel Bagan. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's the guy at Cardiff. You said the left back. He's 20. O'Shea's 23. Collins is 21. Owen Bombadilli's 20. Bazuna's 20. You've got Josh Cullen in his normal role. You've got Malumbi and Knight alongside him. Malumbi's 22. Knight's 21. Up front, Obafemi 21, Adamida 21, Troy Parrott 20.
Like, if Ireland announced that team without the age brackets behind it, there wouldn't be a big uproar. What are we doing? Like, and so now you prefer that team with a bit of experience in it, but it just shows you that again, we hopefully we're not going to get into the debate around whether Stephen's right managing, but it shows you, and a lot of them players have caps under the amount of heavy lifting that's been done in Irish football with our young players over the last 2 years is close to on the brink of something special. Where what's my concern is how many of them are going to go to the next stage. We just don't know, and their club is crucial to that. And also, we're probably missing, like a Wales had, you know, some European Championships, World Cup, a Gareth Bale, a Robbie Keane. We're probably one little star away and somebody coming from somewhere, but potentially we've got a squad. If by hook or by crook we got into the Euros next, imagine these young players, the average age 21.2. If my maths is right, I may be off a little bit here and there, but imagine if we got to a European Championships in this campaign. We've got potentially 8 years, and don't forget we've got like
more players coming through.
Young Evan Ferguson's in the squad every week since Christmas at Brighton. Hasn't played or just about played, but we've got players like that. Conor Coventry, Smallbone's not in that list, who's in and around the Southampton squad. We're very close to something really special, and I think that's why the last window taught me a big lesson. I was on commentary after the Armenia game, and I was really critical, and a lot of my friends came to me after going, you know, you've went heavy on Stephen, like, who again is a good friend, and I was like, right, okay, but I think it was deserved. But actually, what the window taught us is we've got to be patient with. We've got young players who are coming up and down and up and down. We've got to find a consistency.
Success is lumpy. Yes. That's it. Yeah. All right. That was interesting. That team will be good, and that's why this window is hugely important for some of those players, just to get a move if they're going to be available to us and useful to us, and to see exactly where their future is going to be.
And we're relying again on English football, by and large, to do a big chunk, because we can't do anything about it, and we're light years away from being able to. But we need English football and Championship football to help us out here, because we're right on the brink of something special.
Vinny, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us in studio today. Right, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Tomorrow, Johnny Ward joins Owen in studio. Ronan O'Gara is live ahead of the first test. We'll have a hurling preview special on the GA Quick Picks, and of course the Crappy Quiz will be live. Right now we're leaving you with James O'Connor and Eddie Brennan chatting on last night's Off the Ball ahead of the Clare Kilkenny All-Ireland hurling semi-final this weekend. See you tomorrow.
We are looking ahead to what should be a brilliant weekend's hurling. Semi-final weekend has become one of those weekends that is not to be missed in the hurling calendar, and it lines up as follows. Kilkenny against Clare is Saturday 5:30 throw-in. We have Limerick against Galway on the Sunday at 3:30. To preview, very up to say, we are joined by All-Ireland winners both. Jamesy O'Connor, you're there, Jamesy?
Joe, yeah, how are things?
And Eddie Brennan, good to talk to you again. Hello.
Good evening, Joe. You made it home.
Yes, we were in Derry last week at a road show, and there was a great crowd there, and afterwards we sat up and had a beer too, listened to Brennan Devaney tell stories. The big takeaway I had, Eddie, is that when you hear Brennan Devaney tell you stories, you realise you haven't lived very much. You've lived a sheltered life generally by comparison.
Yeah, no, geez, an enjoyable couple of drinks, real character, and I can't wait for his book.
It's with the lawyers. So to look ahead to the weekend, we might just take a diversion by glancing back at the Kilkenny-Clare rivalry. So we were just chatting yesterday and thinking, is this a storied rivalry or one that goes back the decades? And it's really interesting in that effectively Kilkenny and Clare don't play each other, but it really bubbled up during your time. So in championship history, Kilkenny and Clare have only played each other 7 times total. Now, the first of them was in 1932 when Padraic Maher was doing his thing, and Kilkenny won the All-Ireland final. It was 3-3 to 2-3 in 1932. So that was the first of 7. The other 6 all come, extraordinarily really, they all come between 97 and 06. So it kind of bubbled up, and there was a 2002 All-Ireland final, which people will remember. So Clare, to kick off that mini period of the rivalry, Clare were winners in 1997. And then there was one draw in there, and Kilkenny won the rest. So I was kind of curious to get a sense, even from your point of view, Eddie, when I would think of that period from Kilkenny's viewpoint, it would be very much about the Cork rivalry, and that's how people would remember that period, Kilkenny and Cork tussling it out. I don't know how to ask this politely. Did you see Clare, like sometimes a team thinks they have a rivalry with another team, but the other team knows that's not really, we kind of have them taken care of. Did you see that Clare team as a big rival during that time?
No, and I think quite the opposite. They were the benchmark, really. They were definitely the benchmark in terms of bringing, we'll say, hurling forward in relation to physical fitness and kind of that high octane, high energy, high intensity type play. I think someday if you could get Brian to sit down with you, he may not admit it, but I definitely think Brian looked at that Clare team, how they played, and I think he definitely held them up in his own head as this is where we need to go if we're going to be successful, because they brought hurling to a different level. So in that regard, I think, and again for me, as a minor in '96, I was up at the All-Ireland in '95. Clare were a team that had brought hurling forward a little bit, so they were the mark at the time with Offaly, and obviously that golden generation of the 90s hurling. And when I think I played one of my first matches with Kilkenny was up in Goran one evening, and that Clare team at the time, who were probably slightly on a transition really, I think, because you had some of the older crew moved on, and then we landed into 2002 where I think Sir Lyons was in charge, and we had, we met them in an All-Ireland final, and I think my memory of that All-Ireland final was, we found out the following season was that we had got something like 18 or 19, maybe more hooks and blocks, that some guy down in Waterford IT had done a study of that match, and that Kilkenny had turned over or hooked or blocked or successfully tackled Clare in around 18 or 20 times, and a lot of our scores came from that. So that was the first maybe of stats and stuff like that. But just remembered for a day that, you know, DJ played 2 matches in that season, and I think he got a very famous goal that day and a famous point even. And look, it was my first All-Ireland starting, and I think I got the honour of making way to give John Power a gallop.
In that, so 97, Jamesy, as I mentioned, that was when Clare obviously beat Kilkenny in semi-final, and then over the subsequent 5 matches bringing you through to 06, there was a draw, but Kilkenny came out on top. The sense from afar would be teams going in opposite directions and different eras starting and ending. What's your memory of those matches? Because 6 in that brief time is quite a lot.
Yeah, I suppose, look, 97, obviously we got over Kilkenny in the semi-final. 99, Joe, we lost Munster final to Cork. I missed that game. I'd broken my arm against Tip, and we were kind of, at that stage, I'd say, coming to the end, because we were capable of kind of, massive performance one day and then been flat the next. We were lucky to get out of jail, I think, against Tip in the draw Munster semi-final, and kind of beat them well in the replay. And like that, then we met Galway, I think, in the qualifiers. Got out of jail the first day, and then kind of played really well, kind of, I think, in subsequent games. So we Kilkenny in the semi-final, and I just remember about that game. DJ got a magical goal. I think he just caught a ball, just drifted in, maybe caught a ball over Liam Doyle and just went in and stuck it. And that kind of, was a tight enough game, I think, up to that point. And that just, put the bit of daylight between the two sides. So that was the first game, I suppose, when, under Brian Cody and the team was kind of coming. But Joe, I remember an awful lot about that game in 2000 that Eddie referenced in Goran. Because obviously Kilkenny lost the final in 99 to Cork, and to me, Cody learned something from that. And when we met Kilkenny in 2000 in Goran, we had trained ridiculously hard. Ahead of that championship, Lognan got the training, I think, badly wrong. We were, we just had totally overdone it. We really overtrained, and we went down to play them in a pitch opening in Goran on a Sunday evening. And it was a statement of intent from them, because I think they saw us maybe as contenders, and it was a case of laid on America here, and they just ate us alive. And I remember marking Peter Barry and thinking, that he'd about 2 stone of muscle put on over the winter. He'd a pair of thighs in him, and they just looked like they'd physically bulked up, and they really meant business that night. And I think I was going across the middle, Eddie, early in that second half to pick up a ball. And I think it was Michael. I have no recollection of it. I was laid out, concussed. I have no recollection whatsoever of the second half of that game. I just remember walking off the pitch after the game, pretty groggily, knowing that we got a hiding, and we did nothing in the 2 weeks after that, ahead of the championship match against Tipperary, and look, they beat us pretty comfortably. But certainly there was a big change from 99 even to 2000. 2000 was, really statement of intent that they were coming, they were a force, and they certainly physically laid down America that night. And we were probably going in different directions, Joe, I think, in terms of, we were coming to the end. They were certainly a team starting out, and we know the journey that they embarked on. In 2002, was, again, look, we did great in 2001 in the sense that we did huge work done, and we lost a Tip by a point. Down in a real massive championship match down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Nicky, I think, knew that, look, we were in good shape. It would be serious opposition, and we came out the wrong side of it. I know it was 15-14 or something, and Tip went down and won the All-Ireland. But 2002, Tip beat us again. We came into the kind of back door, but the worst possible start happened in that 2002 final, because DJ got a goal, let's say, inside the first minute. And it was one thing to concede a goal to Kilkenny. It was worse, doubly worse, to concede it to DJ, because everyone the Kilkenny side just seemed to get a foot taller, because they knew when DJ was on, obviously they were going to be that bit harder to beat. And we were probably chasing that game, to be honest about it. Kilkenny, I think, were pretty much always able to keep us at arm's length. I think there was one incident right in the second half where Alan Markham caught a ball and I'd made a run, and he laid it off to me. It was, I would say, a centimetre from my hand. And if I'd got that, I'd have been in one thing with James McGarry, and it might have brought us back into it and given his life. But any time we looked like clawing it back, Kilkenny were able to respond and get scores, and I think they won that game by 7 or 8 points for a finish, and were probably good value for it.
And sorry, this match in Garran, this wasn't even a league match. This was just a pitch opening, like come down as friendly neighbours kind of thing. This
was a challenge show 2 weeks before the championship.
Right.
Obviously it was a serious match for us, probably our last big match before we played Tip. But we ran into a buzzsaw that night. Kilkenny just played like a team that, okay, we could be meeting these guys later in the year. It's lay down America.
Right.
And they were just so sharp, so physically strong that night.
It was a benchmarking match for Brian, definitely.
Definitely, yeah. We got the training wrong as well. So, I mean, it was for us, we were just tired, totally overtrained. But look, they were miles ahead of us that night. And as Eddie said, I mean, it was really a statement of intent. I think that, we were comprehensively beaten, Joe, and it was a real setback for us. And we did nothing, as I said, between that match, I say, and the championship. It's all about just trying to get the energy levels up. And we, to be honest about it, we were pretty poor against Tip, and we were well beaten.
It obviously was a benchmark, Eddie, if you both remember it all these years on it. You wouldn't remember every pitch opening match, I'm sure, so you remember that one.
No, geez, yeah, no, I had a particularly enjoyable night because I think DJ fed me about 1-3. So it was. I think I was the only one that probably played that night that didn't start in the All-Ireland final in 2000. I'm not sure who was missing on the night, if it was Ryan McAvoy or somebody like that, and they played Henry out the half-forward line, but Henry obviously in 2000 went back inside. But then, it was something, like I said, we went down in 2002 as well. I think we went down to Ennis in the league and we had a good day. We won by 4 or 5, but it was the start of, we'll say, Henry at centre forward. And I think Peter slotted in at centre back. And I think he put a huge value on that result because it was away, it was in Ennis. And I think, anytime you went on the road in the league, and it carried as well, because I think if you go fast forward to the 2002 All-Ireland final, Martin Comerford and Henry Shefflin started at 14-11 on loan, and Shawnee Mack. And again, that was just Brian, seeing what the boys were made of, putting them into competition with 2 guys like that who were the spine of that team. And again, look, I was marking Frank Lohan. I think, trying to think who was, Gilly was inside and maybe on, a full forward on Noel Hickey. There were matchups that he wanted to test where we were.
So that 02 final, you see, we've mentioned 97 Clare win en route to their All-Ireland win. That was an All-Ireland semi-final. There's the 99 All-Ireland semi-final, which Kilkenny win, and then you've mentioned that pitch opening in Garran. 02, the final, Jamesy, like, in some respects, it's you can kind of think Clare are older in 02. The memory plays tricks, older than they were. Like, you're still only 30 years old in 2002. You're right there in your prime in many respects at a glance, and you score 4 points in that All-Ireland final. Eddie scores 1. But would you compare maybe for us the intensity and even the colour and the sense of adrenaline and belief in 2002 heading into that final versus what I sort of remember, maybe nostalgically or otherwise, but I remember of 97 and 95. It doesn't seem to have been the same energy for whatever reason, Jamesy.
Probably not. I think again, look, we beat Waterford, I think, beat Galway, I think, in the quarter-final, Joe, and I think we beat Waterford then in the semi-final. We had a great record against Waterford, didn't fear them, won the game, and really, I suppose it was kind of, a year that, I suppose, 2001, I think we had real intent, and I think we beat Kilkenny actually in the league semi-final that year, lost the league final to Tip. Bit of shadow box maybe in that one, and then we lost him in the championship, and our year was over. There was no back door in 2001. 2002 then, lost in the first round to Tip, and I suppose that was a big setback. So it just, I suppose, look, personally for me, I suppose I was struggling as well for form and struggling with injury,
right,
not playing well. So certainly the build up to the game was more low key maybe from our perspective, but the game itself, Joe, if there's certain games that you'd love to have back, I think if you asked any of our team, that game is right up there, because we felt we just didn't lay a glove at Kilkenny. We didn't break a hurley. That we never got to grips with it, or got into the game, or got into their faces the way we maybe needed to. And as I said, it was the worst possible start. You're geared up for it, and Henry, I think, put a long ball in. It looked like it was going wide, and suddenly DJ just gets that little deflection on it into the net past Fitzy, and you know what I mean. Straight away, that this is going to be hard fought, that you're going to get nothing easy anyway. But when you concede probably a softish goal like that, and then who you conceded to, because he was so, he was, I suppose, look at the greatest player probably that I played against. I mean, he was special. And as I said, when DJ went well and played well, you felt that Kenny played well, and that the guy you were marking got a foot taller. So as I said, that game, we just felt, or I certainly look back on it and with regrets that we didn't perform. But it was more that we didn't, bring the physicality and the intensity and the aggression, all the things that you probably wanted to bring and needed to bring to have any chance. And we didn't do that. And we probably had a relatively, I suppose, less experienced forward line in the sense that Tony Griffin, Tony Carmody, some of those guys were playing, and maybe you needed maybe a PJ O'Connell and a Conor Clancy, and maybe one of the older, maybe more experienced warrior kind of types, in there. And Kilkenny were just a step bit more maybe mature or seasoned, or whatever way you want to put it, or at least that's the way it felt for me. In the forward line, and right. I think we just we were chasing it, I think, from the off, Joe. And it's certainly a game that I'd say that Clare team would love to have back. I bet. Not that we'd have won it, but certainly that we'd have maybe put up a sterner and a stiffer challenge than what we presented on the day.
So again, 7 times in championship history: 1932, Laurie Maher's final, and then these 6 times in these 9 years. I suppose, Eddie, maybe All-Ireland final aside, maybe one of the more memorable occasions in 2004, Semple Stadium, All-Ireland quarter-final stages, and it's a draw, 113 to 113. It's amazing how the scorelines have changed. 113 apiece between Kilkenny and Clare in All-Ireland quarter-final Semple, and Kilkenny will win the replay 111 to 9 points. Like, Clare scoring 9 points in game of hurling in the replay is kind of an insane one. So Semple Stadium, does that one, this is when Anthony Daly's come in, does that one stick out in the memory for you, the 113 apiece? That Henry Shefflin stuck a penalty over the bar, I think, in that game.
I remember, James, you said about they didn't bring the war. Well, they bottled it up for 2 years and brought it in 2004 in the first match in Croke Park. It was also the first time we kind of seen a real out-and-out sweeper, in that Alan Markham played as a second 6, and he really frustrated us because we weren't anyway used to that. It was a new concept. The rest of the guys were touch tight. I do remember all of the Clare forwards came over to wish me luck before, or the Clare backs came over to wish me luck before the ball was thrown in, and I got a couple of good jostles. But I was sorry,
I stop you there. All of the individual Clare defenders came up and said something to you.
Well, they physically introduced themselves to me. About four or five of them, definitely. 4 of them anyway, before the ball was thrown in. I think it was because I was on Ger O'Grady, and he was a young guy at the time. And I think they were probably softening me up. But it worked because I was gone at half-time. And
so was that like if you dare have a good game here, you'll have us to answer to?
I don't know. It was psychological warfare, and it worked because I bought it and I was gone at half time. But I remember, I think John Hine came in and got a goal for Kilkenny, and Henry did take a point then to square it up. I think it was even the same day. Was that the one, Jamesy, that I think Tony Carmody or Gilligan hit James McGarry square in the face with a ball from 5 yards out, and it bounced over the bar when it looked as if a goal was really on? I think
it was actually
and Tommy.
That game was actually in Croke Park, the draw match.
And, was it? Sorry, I thought it was Semple. Croker. Okay.
The replay was in Semple, but you're right, Eddie. I think Tony Carmody had a chance. I think it was Tony Carmody from about 5 yards out.
Yeah, and had that gone in, was lights out.
Yeah, and as I said, just hit it. The one McGarry, in fairness, he stood tall, but I think he hit him in the forehead with it. I think, and it bounced over the bar. And
I think was that the day that
might have gone over the line.
Was that the day I think that Tommy might have got an early shower? I think.
Yeah, Tommy got sent off early, I think. Yeah, Tommy got 2 yellows. Yeah, and
the only time ever.
It meant then that we could play as a sweeper, I suppose, and it was still 5-on-5, I suppose, up up at the other end of the field. I came on as a sub, I think, just before half time, whatever. And it was hard fought. It was tough. Yeah. It was intense. What I remember about that game was we were mad for extra time, Eddie.
Yeah, there was actually a bit of a powwow over that as well. But when we went to Thurles, I remember it was probably one of the first times that even we introduced, like, we obviously had seen their hands and we decided to counter it. Now, there's rumours abound that Willie O'Connor may have been the one that fed the proposal to Brian. He wasn't involved, but he suggested that Jerry O'Grady was going to mark whoever came into the 13 spot. So what we done was Brian put me out 10 and he put Martin Comerford in 13 and told Martin Comerford that he was to go out and occupy Markham. So basically, if you have someone like Jerry O'Grady was that day detailed to mark somebody, and you do that, and he brings you out and just occupies